this evening instead of the Mayor, who is away on other business. Item number 1, apologies.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Wells, Councillor Nettle, Councillor Hock and Councillor Dalton.
He's here.
Councillor Dalton's appeared. Congratulations, sir. Well done. Thank you very much.
Item number 2, public questions. I believe we do have some.
Yes, Chair. It may be worth combining a number of issues at this point. So we have 6 members of the public that would like to speak on the toilet paper, item 17. I make no apology. And we also have a question from Councillor Taylor as well on the same subject. So, Chair, it may be worthwhile us calling up members of the public to talk, dealing with Councillor Taylor's question, and then moving on to the substantive item 17, if that was okay.
Yep, happy with that.
Excellent. In which case, apologies, officers, you may need to move. Would it be possible that we could ask for a representative of Diggs to come up? So, thank you very much. This is Anna, who I believe is the new secretary. Is that correct, Anna?
Yes, that's right.
Excellent. So Anna will be speaking on behalf of Diggs in relation to toilet facilities.
Hello. So we'd like to raise awareness about the fact that Salisbury does have a disabled community, and losing certainly the disabled loo out on the square behind us would be extremely detrimental to that community. Disabilities can take a number of forms, including limited physical mobility, but also issues where someone might need to reach a toilet incredibly quickly. These disabilities can affect people across the spectrum, so any age, any background. It's really important that we have access to such facilities in order to continue to live a normal life, to be able to contribute to the community in Salisbury as a city, as a community itself. But also it is about preserving dignity and giving people the respect and the facilities that they need, and toileting facilities are certainly what I would consider a basic facility and a standard right. So while we appreciate there are costs and factors involved, the disabled loos are, from our perspective, an absolute essential community service that must remain. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. Our next public speaker, formerly of this parish, is a Ms. Jo King.
Thank you for allowing me to speak to you tonight on the agenda item about the toilets. I will speak a little bit about the toilets, but another element of that particular agenda item I'd like to speak to. I'd like to thank, first of all, Matthew and Mark for putting together this report that they've put together for us. It's very difficult, having been a local government officer and as councillor, it's difficult to get all the differing opinions and viewpoints in, so I'm very appreciative of the work that they've done. So I'm looking at item 17 on the report, option 4. Many of you will receive my statement as same old record, here she goes again, but I'm aware that we have new councillors on the City Council who haven't heard the story about the city stage, and so here I go, and I promise I won't be long. So the vision for a city stage in the centre out here in the marketplace is simple. It's to showcase local talent, school productions, creative groups, bands of all kinds, choral groups, choirs, comedians, storytellers. The list is endless. And I think we could all recognise the advantages to the city that this would bring people into the city to eat and to drink and to shop. In 2022, a motion was put to Salisbury City Council's full council, which read, Salisbury City Council believes that a permanent stage should be erected in the market Guildhall Square, and therefore agree to form a working group consisting of those members of the City Council interested and invite others to join. The working group will agree terms of reference and report back regularly to full council. And this was agreed unanimously. And so the cross-party working group met with technicians, local technicians, musicians, PA companies from across this area, and reported back to the full council periodically. We decided that instead of going for a permanent stage, as the motion had mentioned, we would go for a temporary stage over 6 weeks and trial it and see how it went, and whether there was an eagerness, which we felt there was within the city, to have a permanent stage. The group looked at things like security, booking arrangements, licenses, planning permission, insurance, cleaning, power, all those kind of things. And the 6-week trial was costed and included in Salisbury City's budget, 20,000, 25 and 26. However, I felt that the money could be raised locally from members of the public, from funding applications such as supporting grassroots music and the Arts Council, and so hopefully not needing to use council money. If the trial was successful, we'd move on to raising money for a permanent stage.
Okay, Joe, if you could sort of hurry it along a little bit.
I just tiny bit more. Sorry. I know you've got an evening. I looked at the pros and cons of option 4, and the cons. It said it's complex to deliver, but it's not complex to deliver if a stage is placed in a different place to the other things which were suggested. And I'm suggesting to you tonight something which isn't in the report, which is that the tourist information could have a kiosk in the city centre near the accessible toilets, and a nighttime economy toilet could be placed beside. And the second thing that the report said was about noise. What noise? That's a challenge, I know, for everybody. Loss of space. Instead of having one great big building, if it was spaced out, it would not interfere too much with the city centre and what goes on there. Finally, I'm passionate about showcasing the talent of people, and I'm willing to help in any way I can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Next we have Ms. Marilyn Jones.
Hey. Oh, sorry. I grew up in Salisbury, and I absolutely think those toilets are perfect for our city. The reason is, I think that you've missed the point, is because they're left open too long. They shouldn't be open after 7 o'clock in the evenings, I believe, because all the venues are open. People are going in the venues, using their facilities. So I believe the toilets can be open from 7 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock in the evening, shut down. Thereby, you're saving electricity, what you've all complained about, and there'll be no violence in those toilets if they're shut down after 7 o'clock, I believe, okay? And as for a stage on Market Square, and shutting the toilets down was a totally ridiculous idea in the first place. I don't know who thought that one up, but I disagree with that. We have in our city this refurbishment of the City Hall. We have St Edmund's Church, as a venue, and we have the Playhouse as a venue for stages. We also have lovely outside venues, the lovely Hudson's Field, Old Sarum, Victoria Park, and Elizabeth Gardens for any outside venues we need. So this proposal to shut the toilets down is irrelevant. But one thing I do agree with, and that is maybe you need one or two more disabled toilets that are actually you need to talk to disabled people about them, I think, because they need more access to these disabled toilets. But those toilets, I believe, just need refurbishing, so saving a lot of money. And I believe my council taxes, I'm really angry about this because I don't want my council taxes shutting down these toilets when they can be used. Okay, that's what I'm going to say. So that's all I've got to say about it. Thank you. Anyway, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.
Next, Mr. Chair, we have Mr. Dunbar.
Thank you very much for taking my question, even though I hadn't complied with the one working day written notice of the question. It's not so much a question, it's an offer of assistance. My past role as chair of the Civic Society is now transmorphed into being the president. But my personal interest in the re-establishment of public facilities in Salisbury is based on the fact they are so crucial. Imagine getting on a 380 airliner going on your holiday or going on your tourist trip, wherever it is, and there's no toilets on board. You arrive at your destination to the terminal of your choice and there's no toilets available in the terminal. You know, you won't be going there again. You won't be going on that airline again. My concern is that once people realize how poorly served visitors to Salisbury are in terms of public conveniences, it's even more distressing in my mind that there are no clear signage issues available, QR codes, whatever, to where they might go in the event that they can't use the facilities. And that leads me to think, really, I'd like to urge a focus on the central car park toilets being reopened. I should suspect a much reduced cost compared with the underground toilets in the marketplace, and then invite commercial interests to submit not only a tender to operate, but also design ideas, maybe with a little prize for architects or engineers to come up with a secure solution, paid gates. I mean, in London and elsewhere, 50p to pass through the gates is quite normal. So I'd like you to look at commercial enterprise input, and I would welcome working with the City Council, the Chamber of Commerce, and all those have a financial interest in making Salisbury the #1 destination, not a destination they would cross off their list. So I want to be helpful in whatever way I can in my organisation to look at ways and means of doing the best facility for Salisbury at the most economical cost, of course, and maybe using outsource suppliers, contractors. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Mr. Clark.
Thank you. I'm Alan Clark. I was born in Salisbury in the first half of the last century, so I've been here a long time. My question is, can you consider 2 further options to the list for discussion on item 17? I'm not recommending any given option. Extra option 1, back to what it was with no enhancements. Remember, it was closed for financial reasons. Other points were mentioned, such as bodies, where there have been bodies found in Churchill Gardens loo and Queen Elizabeth Gardens loo. It's not unusual. There's an awful lot of antisocial behaviour around, breaking shop windows, graffiti, drug taking. It's everywhere in Salisbury and the rest of the country. It's nothing to do with the loo as such. Councillor Moss, who I knew very well, was very proud of his upgrade to the market loos at vast expense. We had the accessibility toilets built to solve the challenge for those who couldn't manage steps. I agree with one of the previous speakers, it could be extended, so there's several of them there. On discussing with your financial officer, it's not cleaning as such that is expensive, but the inclusion of full-time staffing of the Market Square toilets. No other local authorities' public toilets are constantly staffed. It's a thing that Salisbury's had for some while and never got around to sorting out. The other option, extra option 2, was brought about by the paper written by the two gentlemen. It gave me the idea that you could in fact hire loos for the whole of the year, every year, not just use through the season. This option has many advantages. I was once working with a chap called Chris Hope, who left to join his son's business, which was portaloos. And his theme of operating them very cheaply was they would come along, load a new one off, put the old one on, and they'd service them all back at his depot. There was no on-site cleaning or restuffing water, just redid the whole lot, and it made it very cheap. So I know portaloos can be quite economically interesting. Just a little aside, I was amazed at the quality you can get some. For the American Embassy, they've got the ones that replace the seat every time, and they also spray water and hot air. Whether Salisbury's ready for loos like that, I don't know. The other suggestion is, I've been retired for some time now and use the bus extensively. The loos in Salisbury Market are great for me because when I get off the X3 bus and my R6 or R2 is every hour, I can nip in those loos very quickly, 8 o'clock at night, and it's great relief. Thus, I know practically all the loos in the villages and towns around here. I suspect I know more about public loos than anyone else here at the moment, but the two people who wrote the paper could excel in their knowledge if they were given remit to be able to visit, for example, the Ringwood loos near their council offices, the Romsey ones near Bradbeers, Winchester's, which are in the park near King Alfred, Pewsey, which is quite interesting, which I doubt if any of you have been to, and Lyndhurst, where they built a new set of loos just 50 yards away from the old ones to encourage the coaches to come. So I put those down as that I thought would give us a tremendous boost if those two people could visit those, talk to the people who run them, then they discover all the kind of problems. I've spoken to the lady at Ringwood who runs the ones there. They can lock various ones at various times, so you can reduce the number of loos available as it gets darker. All kind of facilities you can use, which would be useful for them to know what's available. And of course, you have all the special lighting for anti-drugs and all the rest. So actually talking to these people who have the experience of running these loos, I think would be very useful.
Can I hurry you along, Alan?
Sorry, yes, just one last point. Standalone toilets are exempt from non-domestic business rates, but if they're part of a cafe or stage, they're not. One last sentence. It's been quoted to me quite often that toilets were invented in this country, introduced for hygiene. Queen Elizabeth Gardens is a classic example of where it is now loos for the posh and the gardens for the rest of the population. One of my friends actually came across a lady defecating in the street there, a thing we'd never seen in our whole life in Salisbury. By charging 50 pence on toilets so children can no longer wash their hands and all the rest, to my mind, is disgraceful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan.
And last, Mr. Chair, we have a Mr. Hagger.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, councillors. Many of you know me from Salisbury. I'm a local character in Salisbury, and I just want to say about the toilets. My auntie visited Salisbury from Ringwood and was quite appalled that there was no sort of public facilities in the centre of the city. And, you know, it doesn't look very good at all, seeing them empty, not being used. Now, one of the things I think raised in my question was, what sort of timescale are you thinking of getting new toilets? And the other thing is, I was on the working group when the Market Square was redone, and I just suggest that you ought to have a working group with councillors and the public so that you can come to some kind of conclusion and get these toilets operational again. Obviously, the ones underground, I think, are, you know, have had it. They need to be on top. And basically, I think that's what ought to happen, that you ought to get some kind of working group together with the public and get some kind of conclusion and get it all moving on. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alan. John, sorry. Too many Alans here this evening. I'll hand you over to the CEO.
Firstly, I'd just like to say thank you very much to those people who have taken the time to come along to this evening's meeting and make those points. Next of all, I'd suggest that we take the question from Councillor Taylor before we then go to agenda item 17 and talk about the substantives, if that was okay with councillors. Thank you. In which case, Mr. Chairman, yep. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks very much indeed. Good evening all. And could I add my thanks to all those that spoke, all the representatives. I think it gives us a very good idea of the strength of feeling amongst residents of Salisbury. So thank you for your time. Please could the vote on my amendment and all the toilet issues be recorded this evening? Thank you. My amendment to the toilet paper is as follows. This council believes that the recent closure of the central car park toilets as a cost-saving measure should be reversed without delay. Given that Salisbury City Council's financial situation was not as bleak as was presented to councillors in January, with significant finance in general reserves following recent savings measures. Public opinion has been strongly opposed to closing this toilet block, given its convenient location near the car park. The central car park toilets include a disabled toilet, baby changing facilities, and have nearby blue badge parking, which the alternatives, the coach park, do not. The toilet building is the first building seen by many visitors and tourists who arrive by car and has been recently decorated with high quality murals. Opening the central car park toilets is an affordable measure which will offload or reduce the usage of other city centre toilets like the Market Square toilets we will go on to discuss. My hope is that we would agree that the council would resolve to reopen the central car park toilets without further delay.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, the leader may choose to respond to that particular statement, should he wish to. In terms of pragmatism, could I suggest that with Council's permission, we take Councillor Taylor's ask, perhaps, as an additional option to vote on during agenda item 17? It's around the table, if that was okay. Leader, I don't know if you'd wish to. Councillor Suddart.
Is that a vote to say it's just an alternative, or given, if you're saying it's just another option, then you couldn't therefore have option 1 and Councillor Taylor's
Yes.
option?
Yes, so it would be under, and forgive me, Councillor, under agenda item 17, it's for officers to explore. So we would explore, because obviously everybody in the room is aware that the central car park toilets belong to Wiltshire Council, not to this council. So we would, with full council's approval, officers would then go back to Wiltshire Council and seek to remedy that situation. It's not within our gift to open them immediately ourselves.
It's just an option to be considered, along with the other 7.
Yeah, but then is it digital? You can only have one of the options.
No, you can vote for all 7 if you want.
I think Councillor Foster had a point.
Yeah, Councillor Foster.
I think there were nods around there. Could I clarify that amendment, though, when we get to it? Could we bring it back to the actual option we're taking forward? It felt there was a lot of historic information in there that I wasn't present to and therefore wouldn't feel comfortable voting on historic matters, but rather the option going forward.
Not a problem, Councillor Foster. What I will do, because there are a lot of options for us to go through this evening, and we are having a recorded vote, what I would suggest is I take us through option by option and make it very clear to everybody present what option we are voting on at that time, go through a register of who is voting in which way.
Councillor Simon Charleston.
Thank you, Chair. Is it appropriate at this point to respond to the public questions that have been asked? I'm happy to do so. I'm also happy to do it as part of the larger motion. Okay, great. Well, I'll do it now then in that case. So thank you to everyone who came, everyone who's spoken. It is very much appreciated to hear the diversity of opinions that everyone is bringing. It's clear that this is a subject of quite some great importance to the people of Salisbury. And we'll just go through and respond to everyone if that's okay. Firstly, Anna from Diggs, thank you. Thank you for speaking about the closure or possible closure of disabled toilets. As far as I am aware, there is no option currently on the table tonight that involves closing the disabled toilets. I'm happy to be corrected on that, but I do not believe that is the case. And if there is, that's not an option I personally will be supporting. Joe, good to see you. Love to see you here. Very much, yeah, good to see you back here. The stage, you are absolutely correct that the budget did include a provision for the proof of concept of a stage. Again, as far as I'm aware, we have not rolled back on that. I don't think I'm aware of this being something that has been shelved. So I'm sure that, would councillors like to share with the room? Can we have one meeting? Is that okay? Sorry, Chairman, if we were a bit late. Thank you. I'm not aware of any conversations around the stage being shelved or put away. And I hope that we can bring that sort of temporary option in the fullness of time to sort of measure its effectiveness. I personally don't believe that the vision of a toilet block and a stage is correct. So that's not an option that, again, I will personally be supporting. I do appreciate the offer, the many offers that we've had of any help in this process as well. I think I've got Marilyn Jones here. Your point about the opening hours is noted. Your point about the stage is noted. What I am confident is in these options, we have what will be short-term, medium-term and long-term options. We have a good sort of variety of things to consider in the options ahead of us. So I am hopeful and confident that we will end up with a toilet solution or a series of solutions that work for the Market Square for the next foreseeable future until such time as we get a replacement for that toilet block, assuming we don't go with option A, which is to do nothing. Mr. Dunbar, I think, again, your offer of assistance is well received. I think it's fair to say that whatever options we come up with tonight, other than option A, do nothing, part of that process is going to be to engage in public consultation. I think there has been talk of putting together a working group, including members of the public and councillors and anyone who's interested in toilets. I'm very happy to sort of get as many people around these tables as possible so that we get the solution that works right for everyone in Salisbury. I think we're also talking about some public consultation events, perhaps stands at the market day, to sort of, again, gauge the opinions of people as they go about their daily basis or their daily business. You talked about signage issues around signage, pointing people to toilets. Now, again, I think there are a number of freestanding maps around the city that I think do have the toilets on. Perhaps we could take it as an action point in the future to provide more of them. You touched on the central car park toilets, as did Councillor Taylor, and as Asa has very rightfully mentioned, that is a Wiltshire Council asset. It has been handed back to Wiltshire Council. It is not within this council's gift to unilaterally reopen them. I can share, I am happy to share that this is something I've discussed with Ian Thorne, leader of Wiltshire Council, the possibility of perhaps starting these conversations anyway. Perhaps it's a conversation around bringing it back to us. Perhaps it's something we can bring it as an asset transfer. I'm certainly not averse to that. Again, conversations happening, no commitment at this point, but I'm happy to sort of explore this as an option. And again, happy to look at this as one of the options this evening. Alan Clark, you talked about 2 extra options. Firstly, back to what it was, which I think is one of the options. And that's something that we can certainly consider. Your second option is to hire toilets. I think the provision of portaloos or portable toilets. Now, again, I don't take this as read. I did some sort of back of an envelope calculations here. I think that would possibly cost us sort of £90,000 a year to bring portaloos into the Market Square year round, which I'm not personally convinced is good value for money at this time. But certainly it's an option we could certainly consider. I like the idea of toilets that blow hot air. Plenty of that in this room, I'm sure, tonight. And again, your point about the business rates is a really interesting and excellent one, and certainly not something I considered, that if toilets were attached to a stage and or cafe, then we'd be more on the hook for business rates, I suppose. I will just speak to your point about charging for toilets. We have had this discussion a number of times. Usually when we refurbish or reopen a new toilet, is about whether we charge for it. And the answer actually invariably comes down to one of the ways you prevent people from going in and vandalizing these toilets is to put a charge on it. It's not often particularly about raising revenue. I think there's a line in the report about how much the Market Square toilets raised in the last 6 months is £2,000, which, based against its costs is not a particularly cost efficient line in anyone's budget. We don't do it to make money. It's done to sort of hopefully prevent vandalism to those facilities, and I suppose in that way save the money of refurbishment costs. John Hagger, good to see you. Thank you again for coming. As I think I've covered it off before, I'm very happy to sort of take your suggestion forward, or appreciate your suggestion about working groups. As I say, I think that element of public consultation, that element of involving the public in these conversations is absolutely something that we definitely want to do. And I think I'd like to hope that anyone who's interested in being part of any sort of these working groups or these consultation pieces, I would hope that we can gather your information tonight before you leave, so that we can keep you involved and informed of our decisions moving forward. Finally, Chris, let's discuss it. As I said before, it's a Wiltshire Council building. We have handed it back. It belongs to Wiltshire Council and it's entirely in their gift. If we can look at it as an asset transfer, I'm happy to look at that as an option, very happy, very keen and eager to do that if it's something that means we can bring them back. I will just touch upon there's something called the paradox of preparedness. Absolutely right. It was a diabolical state that we were presented with. The finances, they were awful. They were not in a good place. And it's because we took that action. We took, good, strong action to boost revenue and to cut costs that we were able to find ourselves in this much better situation. I'm not apologizing for any of the decisions that we made to get to that point. I'm not. We were staring down quite the barrel. And I think what we did was to right the ship and get it moving forward in a right way, in a proper way. But now we are where we are, and if we can use our sort of increased or better financial position to look at some of these options, bring some of these options back, then let's explore it. I think that's everyone. I will say more, if you can stand to hear it, on item 17 itself. I think that's everyone. So thank you all again for your time and for coming and contributing and participating. I would just say it's really nice to see that it's more or less standing room only. You can hear, we can only hope for this level of engagement at more council meetings. So thank you all for being here, even if those of you who didn't speak. So, thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Sam. You have been noted, Councillor Bolwell, but we need to crack on with the report. So you will get first dibs at responding once the report has gone through. Over to the CEO.
I'd like to hand over to our head of business, Matthew Hine, and our head of environment, Mark Reed, to present their report on toilets.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Asa. We are here this evening to look at a number of options, as you are aware, to review the provision of toilets on the Market Square. The reason that both myself and Matt have jointly prepared this paper is because we're coming at it from two different angles. I'm coming at it from the facilities angle, so it is my role to ensure that the facilities the City Council looks after and oversees are of the highest quality that we can possibly provide. And Matt, from his head of business side, is looking at it. He oversees all of the events and things that happen on the Market Square, and also obviously has a lot of discussions and influence with the partners within the city in terms of what is required from visitors and from the members of the public. In terms of where we're at, I think the key considerations really, which is in option 3, section 3, before we go on to Asa taking us through the main options. The key considerations really, whatever happens here, we need to think about public safety and confidence. We really do need to consider financial viability. We need to consider event provisioning, which is Matt's area of expertise. We need to consider accessibility. I think we've heard that from behind us today, and we need to think about operational resilience. Matt, before we hand over to Asa to take us through each of those 7 options, plus the additional ones that councillors and residents have bought, is there anything you would like to add?
Good evening, everyone, councillors, members of the public, chair. Asa. I think what Mark and I are trying to do is present a set of circumstances to initiate a debate about what we do next. I think it's fairly obvious that all of those that spoke this evening have a history, an opinion, a view, or a point to make around the provision of public toilets, not only generally in Salisbury, but their place in society, their place in the city centre, and their usefulness to all of those who wish to use them. It's not for officers to make decisions about the services that are provided by cities. It's for officers to manage the services that are provided by cities. And I think this paper will hopefully give all of those people in the room an opportunity to debate, decide, and action some elements of this paper so that we can look into what we do next, look in more detail at exploring some of these options, and come to a place where we have an all things considered outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. So I would suggest that the next portion is handed over to councillors for questions before I then take us through the recommendations step by step, if that's agreeable, Chair. So over to councillors.
Councillor Bolwell.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to not so much correct you, Councillor Charleston, but I think you misheard the point that Anna from Diggs was trying to make. She didn't mean about you closing them. What she meant was it's to be reverted back to just being a disabled toilet. That's what it was there for. That's what it was built for. When the refurb here was done, the disabled toilet wasn't included in it. That's why they built that one on the square. And to have it for everybody, I don't think is right.
Happily corrected. Thank you.
Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I just want to clarify a point of where we are practically on the Market Square. Are the new disabled accessible toilets connected to the old pumped underground sewerage system, or do they go into their own independent gravity sewer system?
So at this moment in time, they are connected to the underground system.
Can I just have that confirmed, so they're on the pumped system?
Yes.
Councillor Rimmer.
Thank you very much. I have to say that I was quite surprised when to read this agenda, to read through these options, that there isn't on here the option which would be to revert to what they were prior to April when they were closed. It was said in January that we were trying to save £50,000 by closing them, and now the lowest cost item that's on here is 150 to 250,000 to refurbish them. So I suppose one of my questions is, to what extent is that refurbishment entirely necessary in order to open them? And to what extent is that an added extra? And is there an option which could be considered to reopen them exactly as they were prior to the decision taken in January's budget to close them? That's not option one. Option one's keeping them open. Option one's keeping them closed as they are now.
Chair, I can take this one. So there is an opportunity for us to add an additional recommendation if you'd like to propose and find a seconder. Alternatively, there is a zero cost option, which is option one, councillor, which is just maintain what we have at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, I'd like to propose that we have the option of reopening the toilets as they were prior to the budget passed in January.
Do you have a
with the
seconder?
lowest level of refurbishment possible in order to open them, i.e., only that which is completely necessary in order for them to actually be opened?
Yep.
Sorry, so next you have.
Did you still want to speak, Councillor Hocking? Okay.
So a couple of things, I think, from my perspective. So I think, as Sam's already said, there is no intention of closing the disabled toilet out there at the moment, period. That will stay open. And I think a lot of the concerns that Diggs have and others were that if we closed these and opened up the disabled toilets to everybody, okay, we'll come back to that, but was to let other people use them, other non-disabled people to use them if we close the ones underground, yeah? So my question is, when we say they generated less than £2,000 in revenue, they are pay-per-use. So what does that £2,000 revenue in the last 6 months mean, usage-wise? How many people does that mean used the toilet in 6 months?
May I answer that, Councillor? It's between 47 and 60 people a day. And may I also pick up on the point from our friends at Diggs? The usage for those with disabilities, there is no charge on those disabled toilets. They will be used in the same way as they were with a radar key, how they were previously accessed. So those disabled people will not pay to use the toilets upon the square.
Okay, just.
No, it's not. I've got a radar key if somebody wants to come with me, but you've got to pay no matter what.
I've been trying to radar key as well, it doesn't work as well.
Yeah, we can respond offline to that.
Of course, yeah, but that's not the intention. The intention is that if you have a radar key, you can absolutely use those toilets as you did previously. But we will look at that as a fix.
Yeah, if you want to speak, please can you put your hand up first rather than just jumping in? Thank you.
So to continue, Matt, that's between 47 and 60 people a day. Is that for both or each underground toilet?
That's for all the facilities, Councillor.
So that could be 30 in the gents, 30 in the ladies. And what do you class as a day, hours-wise?
That is a 9-hour day.
So 9s into 30 is 3. So what we're saying is the underground toilets are used by 3 people per hour on the days they're open. Is that right?
Yeah, that's reasonably accurate, yeah.
So that was just to give some context to my thoughts about using, if those were kept closed and we allowed the disabled toilets to be used by all, then that would increase the usage of the disabled toilets by 6 people every hour on average during the day. Is that fair enough?
I think it was 3 per hour, councillor.
Per toilet, so it'd be three men, three ladies, 3 gents is 6.
But at the moment, yes, we haven't had any issues in terms of usage on there. As in there aren't queues of people waiting to use the accessible toilet.
So are non-accessible users accessing the toilet at the moment?
Yes, they can.
Okay, and I guess the question to Kez is that causing a problem, Kez, have you noticed? Has that caused a problem with access for disabled people using the toilets, the fact that there's a queue? Or have we not noticed any? And I'm not trying to catch you out, I'm just asking. Okay. Yeah. I'm just trying to build up a picture. If it had been 500 people an hour, then different story. But in context, it's 6. So that's the scale of the issue. And I get why the officer's saying, why will we keep them open for 6 people an hour? And I sort of get why Councillor Rimmer suggested we just go back to what we were doing.
Okay, can we move on to the next councillor, please? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. I emailed these questions or bits of pieces of information to Mark last week, so they're not a great shock, hopefully. It follows on from Councillor Rimmer's request to some extent, and I was hoping for an option 2A. We can call it whatever number you like, but it was basically to open a single toilet block, one of the 2 underground blocks, probably the ladies, and to do a minimal refurbishment, not a full refurbishment. So not 0, but what it takes to make it serviceable and clean, and not open it in the evenings, as one of the suggestions was earlier. So just run it during the working days and for markets and for special events, just 1 toilet block. So I'd like to know what that's going to cost. I'd like that to be discussed, please. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Corbyn.
Thank you. I've kind of got 2 because one popped into my head after with everybody else. So my first point is, if we want to pick more than one option, so like if we're going to go, I'd like a mix of that and definitely that, how are we going to do that with the voting? That's my first thing.
So we will vote on each of the options individually. So if, for clarity, if option 1 is chosen and voted through, in effect, that there ends the discussion, I think.
Okay.
For the remaining options, assuming that option 1 isn't picked, any number of the following options can be chosen and voted on and approved, because what the paper seeks is a direction, and you can give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different options for us to explore should there be a simple majority in the room. So I'm going to ask that there is a simple majority vote taken on each of the options in turn. Hopefully I'll make it very clear what option we're talking about, and each councillor will be called in turn to give a yes, no or abstention against that option.
Thank you. And my second point is more to do with the fair on the square. They're having toilets, aren't they?
Yes, councillor, we're hiring in toilets for that 6-week period.
Can I request that there are counters on the actual doors to make sure that you know what the footfall is?
Yeah, we can make that request to the providers.
Yeah, because I think one of the problems that we've had historically is the information back doesn't really give you a true figure of how many people were using the toilets, because sometimes the operative would be upstairs and letting people in for free. So it made it too hard to calculate. And if we manage everything for the next 6 weeks with the toilets on the fair on the square, then at least we know we're going in the right direction, and it gives us something better to work with, I think.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
I'd like to propose that we add an extra option that some of us have discussed, which is exploring on the cheese market, outside the library, the space to the right, as you're looking at the front of the library, could be repurposed as a toilet block. And a second to my question is, when I look at these figures, you know, as someone who's built 2 of my own houses, I'm not sure why it could cost up to £1 million to build a loo. I mean, is there something peculiar about our procurement processes, or is it just me? But I mean, haven't we all built things or refurbished houses or done an extension, often with several bathrooms? It seems quite extraordinary. And maybe, is it because we're talking about it being the marketplace or it being underground? Are we not just, I mean, maybe that's a failed project from the start to keep thinking about underground. I certainly won't be voting for refurbishing the existing ones. Anyway, that's my point. Over.
Before I go to councillor last, Alan Clark, did you wish to speak? Thank you. Councillor Last.
Looking at these options, as has been said by previous speaker, I wonder where these figures were obtained from, the basis on which these estimates were made. But looking at option 2, it seems to be a lot of money to refurbish toilets that are already there. The only reason, it seems to me to be the compromise option, and the risk factors that were put in originally actually were largely non-existent, because the risk factors applied to the night toilet, which I actually visited, and the last time I smelt anything like that night toilet was in Shanghai, in the lower end of Shanghai, in a market, and I could smell that 50 meters away. Fortunately, it was locked away at the time, but when it was opened for my inspection, I thought, close it quick. To digress just slightly, when it comes round to the central car park, no, we're not talking about it. It's just a thought that there are 800 places there for 3%, less than 3% of the income for 5 days. Those toilets could be opened by Wiltshire Council. I see no reason why Wiltshire Council can't give up 3% of its income to open those toilets and run them, or perhaps pay us as an agency to do so. Thank you.
Before I go to the next councillor, did officers want to come back up on the figures for option 3?
Sorry, for clarity, there was a question about how does it cost £1 million to replace a toilet? And then I believe the second question was, where did you get the figures from in terms of usage?
So the figures came from paid usage, bearing in mind that people have spoken about people not paying to use. I guess we can never count people that don't pay the fee. The answer about these figures are estimated figures, and you can see that there's quite a broad scope between these figures. Now, whenever I guess you're looking at doing something in a local authority, particularly with these toilets being in the condition that they are in, the issues we've already discussed around the existing pipe work and pump work, what we may or may not discover once we start to look at them in more detail, the cost could be less in some of these options for sure, but they could absolutely be very similar to what's been suggested. And I think, again, it comes back to what we were originally saying, in that what we're trying to do here is put a set of options to you for debate and discussion that you can then instruct us to go away and do more detailed work, which, by the way, will cost money, which will add to these figures, or certainly contribute to the overall cost. So we are looking for a clear steer from councillors about which options you would like us to explore in that level of detail that you require.
Okay, if I can go to John Hagger first and then Councillor Sample. Thank you, John. Councillor Sample.
Chairman, I haven't got a question, but I've got an opinion. And if you want me to kick off, I'm quite happy to do that.
I knew you would have.
If no one else has got any questions to ask. First of all, can I thank very much the officers for the preparation of a good paper with lots of options, not all of the options, but, you know, more than we had previously. So a lot of thought has gone into that. Good paper, lots of information. Thank you very much. I think the second thing I would say is not entirely sure, but I'm absolutely confident that the reason that we took the decision about the closure of these toilets last year was because of an impending financial problem, and the then administration decided, given the financial information it had and the advice of officers on the threat that was posed, that the right thing to do was, among other things, to close the toilets. And it was also thought that the condition of the toilets here in the Market Square was totally unacceptable. And I would certainly agree that on a Sunday morning, early in the morning before the cleaners arrive, around about 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, it's absolutely disgusting. Totally unacceptable. We've definitely got a problem. It's a reputational problem because there are toilets, they've been open all night, and they are disgusting. We have to accept that. We have to make sure that when we manage them in future, we solve that problem. How do we make them decent for human use in the morning will be one of the issues that we need to sort out. In my opinion, Chair, public toilets are not a luxury. They're essential infrastructure. They protect the public health, they promote dignity, they support local business, and they ensure that public spaces are truly public. I would like to say that it is a sign of a civilized society that we have public toilet provision. Many groups depend on public toilets: elderly people, as we've heard, pregnant women, people with medical decisions, those with disabilities, children and parents with young kids. And without accessible toilets, as we've heard from CARES, some people avoid going out completely, and we have a problem of social isolation and reducing mobility. So from my perspective, the important thing here is that we provide a reasonable level of public service that reflects well on the city and is something that we can be proud of. And yes, I use that phrase advisedly. There is no reason that we should not be proud of our public toilets. We should not be embarrassed about them. We should be showing that we are committed to reducing social isolation, that we are an inclusive local community which welcomes and provides those with a range of abilities and disabilities for people of all ages, including pregnant women and disabled people. I think that is a mark of being a civilized society. I think the option that I would most like to see at this stage as well with regard to the central car parks toilets is that we have a conversation with Wiltshire Council about the possibility of us doing some form of transition, asset transfer, and I've written to Ian Thorne, who is the leader of Wiltshire Council, asking him whether he would be prepared to consider that asset transfer if we were indeed to go to him. And I expect his response imminently. Who knows, even during this meeting. Watch this space. And the final thing that I would say is that of the 7 alternatives that are laid out before us, for me personally, the first one, and I'm going to be consistent in that, I like the idea of option 7, the spend a penny scheme. I've always liked that. I spoke about that last time round. I felt it was a reasonable option, and it's something that goes elsewhere. We should try to encourage our local businesses to offer their facilities. They may very well see a return in terms of good publicity as partners in providing a civilized local provision, and it may very well be that we need to consider some form of financial encouragement. So I like the idea of the spend a penny, and that was something I think that one of the, I think it was Joe Broom actually at the last discussion supported. But of all of the proposals today, the one that I favour most...
Can you hurry along there a little bit, Paul?
As I
Please.
come to my final sentence, the one that I favour most is option 2, which is refurbishment of the facilities, not build something new above ground, but make the very best that we can of the facilities which we close down and spend the money that is necessary to get that right, with special emphasis on ensuring that it is in a fit state on a Sunday morning, come what may. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Paul. So I've next got Councillor Dalton, then Councillor Victoria Charleston, then Councillor Riddle, then Councillor Foster. And I think at that point we need to wrap it up. Okay, so Councillor Dalton.
Chair, thank you very much. Interesting listening to all the toilet issues off of everybody around this table tonight. Probably, from what some of the residents said, to be honest, we probably ought to refer this whole item to a working group with perhaps reps from each political party, not dominance. I would like to see what the normal Joe public want from this council on the toilets. And I know for a fact, having just gone through an election like everybody around this table, they want toilets. But I think if you give us 7 options, that's already grown now to 10. And I've had the same conversation with Ian Thorne about the toilets on the central car parks. I think if we can do something there and get those reopened again, that would be a great option. This paper is primarily Market Square toilets. I'm slightly surprised Councillor Taylor's option has been taken on board, really, because it's not the Market Square, is it? It's the central car park. But however, I've already made those discussions with Ian, as Paul has, and Councillor Charleston to my left. Now, I'm one of those councillors. I'm here because councils, in my opinion, provide services. Those services are expensive, whether it's toilets, a swimming pool facility, city hall, or whatever it is. And we've seen many of those facilities over the years disappear because some councils have refused to support them. It's like a bus, isn't it? The R5 bus probably goes around my area, probably with 1 or 2 people on it, to be honest. So we sit here and say, well, you know, let's cut that service because nobody uses it. I can't sit here and determine what Councillor Hocking was saying, that only 6 people an hour use the toilet. We either provide them or we don't. And I know your group did propose to actually close the Market Square toilets anyway, back in the January budget. And I was one of the few that sat over there speaking against that. So my preference is really, nobody said it yet, is really refer this whole item to a working group to come back to next full council in September or whenever it is, and get moving on it. Option 2 would be my favourite one, and you can get rid of all the cons about the antisocial behaviour by not having a 24-hour toilet. there never used to be a 24-hour toilet there. There used to be concertina black gates that were pulled across at night and locked with a padlock, for those around this table that remember that. And they were only removed probably in the last 15 or 20 years, whenever it was, which is probably the last time, to be honest, disgustingly, that they were refurbished. And there was a refurbishment programme on this council for all of our public toilets, which seemed to have gone down the toilet, should I say, because I don't know what's happened to that. We had £75,000, Sven, you probably remember this more than I, each year to do up our own public toilets within the city, and that's just gone out the window. And as for charging, I would agree with what John Hagger said. Why were the Market Square toilets only 20p when all the others were 50p? And the charges, Sven, were introduced under your administration a few years ago. I remember sitting in this room when you were arguing for a charge of £1 on the toilets, and we actually managed to get the 50p.
We introduced 50p and then you lowered the charges under the last administration. Yeah.
But so it was 50p, and the radar key works, or did work, in the Market Square. We've got one of those for little one, because it's the only time you can go in and use child facilities to change your little one, usually in disabled accessible toilets. But in the Queen Elizabeth Gardens, I think it's not a radar key. I don't quite know what the key is there, to be honest. So we need one key over our assets, should I say. We shouldn't be mixing different types of entrances to those facilities. So in my opinion, refer this whole item to residents with our input, and see what the residents come up with, and come back to council in September, whenever it is. But I'm all for opening central car park toilets with discussion on Wiltshire Council, and I'm pretty confident that something will get done with that. And option 2, to be honest, to get them refurbished and get them open again as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councillor. Before I hand over to the CEO to respond, just to respond to Councillor Hocking, I think the lowering of charges he referred to was just for Fisherton Rec, which was with a mind to the 20p charge because of the proximity of the play area and the increased usage of young families. I don't think we actually lowered, or the previous administration actually lowered the cost anywhere else. So can I hand over to the CEO to respond?
And thank you. And before we go to Councillors Charleston, Riddle and Foster, just wanted a couple of points of information with the points that Councillor Dalton has made. I know, Councillor, we've spoken about radar keys and trying to ensure that all of our toilets use the same equipment so that those with radar keys can access those toilets. Completely agree with you. It should be one across our whole estate. In terms of fees and charges, councillors may or may not remember that whether it's a good or a bad thing, fees and charges has now been delegated to me in terms of setting those prices with a report that comes back to full council. So hopefully I'll be able to take some of the sting out of some of those charges going forward. In terms of the substantive report itself, once you have selected those options, it is my proposal that officers work up those proposals so that we have some very clear detail around some of those prices, some of those timescales. It is not that officers are going to work in isolation. Indeed, I think the process should be led by councillors, but I think we need to liaise with a number of key organisations in our city. They also need to be discussed with the public, and importantly, the thoughts of business need to be included in this. So this is not the end of the process by any means. This is the very start so that we can have something meaningful to discuss with the City of Salisbury going forward.
Over to Councillor Victoria Charleston.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, officers, for your very detailed report. I think, just an observation, that there's been passionate debates for months now about these toilets, which I think has been really good, and I think we've had a good discussion this evening, actually. I'm fully in favour of public consultation on this, and I think we all are, and as directives go, that's definitely one from me. Can we definitely make sure that the public are involved in this the whole way through? Because we are talking about either changing what the Market Square looks like, or and that's really sensitive for a lot of people. I think Caroline's point about the counters on the toilets over Fair on Square is a really good idea. I think it's been really helpful to have that £2,000 and work out 60 people a day, we said, a day. I'd be interested to know figures for our other toilets we look after. So how does that compare? And then actually getting to my questions, 3 questions for you. The spend a penny scheme, the 7th option, does any other town offer that in isolation, or is that as well as public toilets they run? Second question, I know that storage for the market has been an issue for your team, Mark, for a long time, and the storage options you currently have are not safe. I believe I'm correct in saying, and up to health and safety standards. If we discount some of your options that include storage, do you have plan Bs for what you want to do that you'd like to bring to us in terms of storage? And my third question to you, option 2, people seems to be quite popular among people. You've given us a cost for that. Is that the cost for the next 5 years or the next indefinite? Are we going to have to look at refurbishing again? Because I thought one of the problems with the current toilets is that they are leaking, and even if we seal them, we're going to have to reseal them again later on anyway. So it's not like option 2 is done and dusted, is my understanding.
So just to answer your final question, so in terms of, well, like with any refurbishment, it's never just refurbished and done. It's like if you do anything in your own home, you put in a new kitchen, at some point you'll need to do some further works. That's exactly the same as what it would be with any refurbishment underground. Yes, there is a leak down there, which means it would need to be fully tanked to make it suitable. And then, yes, of course, there would then be ongoing maintenance costs, as there would be with any other building. I think the question around storage is probably one for Matt. Matt's Markets, I'll hand over to you.
I understand, we're almost identical, I understand. So I think there is a challenge with storage for the markets, and as you rightly said, it's been the case for a long time. And as we look to grow the markets and make them more attractive experience for people, we'll need even more storage, more gazebos, more weights, more manual handling as things as we need to move things about in slightly different ways as things change. We can't just pick things up and hulk them all about now. We need more trolleys, we need more things that make things easier, hydraulic systems, all sorts of things, pallet trucks. So storage is a challenge. We've just undertaken an exercise at the depot where we have gone through a bit of a cull. So that's allowed us to reduce some of the clutter, some of the rubbish, some of the broken bits and bobs that we have down there. But ultimately, it will be a challenge ongoing for storage. We could, of course, make some changes to the building, cells, make that more easily accessible, ramps, various things like that. But yeah, the challenge of storage always exists, and it's either that you find better things to utilise, or you find smaller, more compact ways to do things, or you find new solutions, such as building under or building other things on top of the market square. So,
if it helps, I can answer the first question. Test Valley, one of our neighbouring areas, undertakes the provision of public toilets as well as a community toilet scheme.
So I have Councillor Riddle, then Councillor Foster, then Councillor Podger.
Thank you, Chairman. My first observation would be that the costs of these various options are so varied at a time when we don't really know what we can afford. If I were running a household, which I do sometimes when I get time, I would decide what I could afford before I made a major investment, rather than just, trying to compare such very different things. And I would let that guide me. And I'm very much aware when I say this, that we have been cutting things back and saving money hand over fist as fast as we can in order to get ourselves out of a very difficult financial situation which we've been in. We have not yet rebuilt our reserves to the level recommended by the finance officer. And we're already talking about as if we've got extra money somewhere down the back of the sofa, which we haven't got. We have the poultry cross repairs coming up, which are going to cost an arm and a leg. I don't know how we weigh up the importance of a new toilet block against keeping our precious poultry cross up and running. So my personal view would be that we do go back, as Councillor Last suggested, to Wiltshire Council and ask them to contribute from the income from that car park. I would be aware of what we call an asset transfer, because I think we've all been a bit scarred by some of those in the past with the unintended consequences, and we end up with a service we can't afford to run 5 years later. But I do think that we could invite them to consider opening the central car park toilet, which is theirs and which wouldn't take very much money to do at all. I don't think we really want to take on any more problems like that. I don't think that the underground toilet in the marketplace needs to be an option. If we could combine something like persuading Wiltshire to subsidise the central car park toilet and combine that with something like a spend a penny scheme, we would end up with much cheaper options overall, not be taking on large liabilities that we really don't know whether we can afford. And I think in that context, I think Councillor Dalton's idea of referring the item to a working group, we don't want to be seen to be just kicking it down the road again all the time, because it is a difficult decision. But I do think that this is too wide an issue, widely drawn up at the moment, and we can't really compare like with like in this set of options. First of all, we need to know what we can afford, where that money's going to come from, where we can get money from somebody else if possible, and what the wider public would actually like us to do once they know what it is eventually going to cost them, not just us.
Thank you. Councillor Foster.
Perfect. I'll be very quick. So if you've heard something you like, assume I agree or not. What I will say, though, is I think there's maybe an option 67 now we're on to. But also this might be an option A, because I think it could run parallel and maybe bring the flexibility that Councillor Riddle was just saying we might need in times where we're not really sure where we are. And that is from the committee meeting a week ago, the mention that at the Fair of the Square we're going to have a toilet block. And this will be temporary and it will come in for 6 weeks and it'll be really nice and then it will go away and we'll have that for other fairs. It would be really good to get the information put in front of us with all these other options of what would a temporary toilet block cost us for the events, maybe for market day, but for not other days, and just have that as an option, because I think that could provide flexibility and control of costs, because if at any point in the future we don't need it anymore, we could stop it. And I feel that might be another option to consider here, gives us something else which the others don't, which is flexibility after the decision, but could be put in combination with others like the spend a penny solution, that we have that for normal days, and when there's higher capacity of footfall, we could bring in some additional toilet capacity. So that was, say, option whatever we're at to possibly.
Chair, if I may, just to clarify, if you have a seconder, sir, I think that would make option 10.
Yeah,
So Councillor Burton has seconded. So and again, apologies why this is important from an officer's perspective that we get this direction setting.
So yes, I put that as option 10.
Thank you. So just to confirm, there is option 8, which is around Central Car Park reopening. That was originally Councillor Taylor. We then have option 9, which is around Councillor Rimmer's proposal, which is reopen Market Square toilets with minimal cost. And then we now have option 10, which is investigate temporary toilets.
Sorry, can I just ask a question for information? Councillor Last's proposal that we initially reapproach Wiltshire, is that one of the options now?
So that would be the, in effect, option 8, the Conservative proposal that was originally proposed by Councillor Taylor. So that's the Central Car Park reopening that Councillor Last then also commented on.
Councillor Podger.
Thank you, Chair. Just a very quick question to the officers. Is there a working gravity sewer pipe within the Market Square, i.e. non-pumped? No. No. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor, on the premise that it's very, very quick.
So it's processed now. So following on from what the CEO just said, don't forget those my comments to Mark Reed about a 2A option. So I think option 2, we've got 3 versions now. What's written, Councillor Rimmer is effectively proposing a version of that. I do that, but without spending any money. And I'm proposing do that, but spend less money. So we've got 3 versions of that. We might want to take that as 3 iterations at the same time.
Now, I don't really want to go round and round the room again. So unless you have something which is really quite significantly different.
It was just a shortcut.
Go on then, Councillor Last, quickly.
Just have option 2 as a plan for reopening the Market Square toilets, and just leave it at that, and then we can move forward on an appropriate approach once that's done. So we don't need all the other bits at all.
Councillor Dalton.
Chair, sorry, I didn't move it, but I'd like to move. I don't know if I've got a seconder, so it could fall now, that we refer all those options to a working group, including members of the public who are interested to sort out, and come back in September with proper, not proper costed options, but more information, and then each option. Because tonight we've just sat around here, picked everything that's here, added a few things that I'm not aware of and other members are not aware of. And if that went to a proper working group, that working group could sort out either 1 or 2 of the best options to come back to full council for a decision. I don't know if I've got a seconder for that.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to take.
Chair, if you like, I think the first thing that we need to then take is Councillor Dalton's suggestion, which is, in effect, we hand all this over to a working group. I would probably like to insert something along there that I need to liaise with leaders or representatives of each of the group to actually work up the membership of that working group, because again, I think it needs to extend far beyond councillors. Which members of the public do we need to take account of the various social cleavages that we have, as well as businesses, and which organisations that are working across the city, which of those do I include in a working group as well? So I'm going to need a lot more guidance beyond just a working group.
Yeah, can I? Just the spend a penny scheme. Just Sam, I don't know if you want to say something on that, but
can we go through the chair, please?
Yeah, if I don't know if you want to rule out option 1 first, which is the leave it as it is, or just refer the whole lot.
Apologies, councillor. If we take your motion first,
right, okay.
Then the whole
Happy
thing
for that.
goes, and that's
All right.
that. Then if we're not doing that, then we can go through in order.
The point, can I just add, the point of my, the point of this motion to refer it to a working group, there's a lot of interested people out there. Other options have come up around the table tonight, and I don't think I'd be comfortable to vote on some of those or not vote on some of those, because I think we're going to end up with the wrong option if we do that, in all honesty. We're better off getting there's some interested people in the room who I'm sure will leave their details behind, and we can build on that tonight.
Councillor Rimmer.
Can I just clarify, if we go for what Councillor Dalton just said, are we talking about that there's a working group who then bring back proposals to the next full council, so full council will still vote on it, or are we talking about delegating the actual?
Groups don't have delegation, so it would be in September, isn't it, I think?
Just to add, I think September is an unrealistic timetable, councillor.
Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I did hear at least one other option, which was that we consider something for the area to the side of the county library and it was not. It was proposed, but it's not one of the options which we've now got in front of us. Could it be?
Sorry, can we just pause for a minute? I just need to speak to the CEO.
Indeed, I think the first thing that we need to do, and apologies, councillors, I think it's important that we do this in the correct order. For me, I think the material issue, which affects all others at the moment, is the setting up or otherwise of a working group. If you'd like to vote for that or not, then the rest of the options will either then we will vote on, or they will in effect be rolled into the working group for their consideration. I would suggest, and again, I don't know the makeup of, apologies, councillor, I don't know the makeup of the working group. In terms of a timetable, I think 6 weeks is very ambitious. And therefore, my original proposal was we sought direction from councillors, and then we came back with some worked up suggestions that we would then start an engagement process. That was my original thought process. Apologies if I've misunderstood and got that wrong.
Chairman, can I come back as the mover of the motion, which we're about to vote on, I hope. I don't want us to keep going around in circles, which I think if we vote on the options here tonight, which are around about 10 of them, we're going to be here till midnight on this item alone. The whole point is to refer it to a working group. All the options, if we vote on it and then come up with the options afterwards, but all the options that everybody's here has discussed tonight, including the library one that came up from Councillor Brown, I think, Councillor Taylor's, Councillor Rimmer's, and Councillor Last, or whoever it was. So all those options that we've discussed tonight, that they are taken to the working group, whatever it's called, whatever the makeup is, of political inclusion as well, and the public. I'm more interested in getting the public involved to hear what they want, to be honest. They should be telling us.
Okay, so we have a mover for that working group. Did we have a seconder? Councillor Riddle. Okay, all those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've got 10. 1, 2, 3. All those against? Any abstentions? Well, that is carried. Okay, just to get your attention, a recorded vote was actually requested beforehand, so we need to get go through the vote again. So we've got those in favour.
So Beth, is it easier if you call out the names of the councillors and ask them and do it that way?
So this is for Alan Bayliss. Phil Bevan.
For.
Jenny Bulwell. 4. Mac Brown. Sam Charleston. Victoria Charleston. Caroline Corbyn.
4.
Brian Dalton.
4.
Sam Foster. Sven Hocking. Richard Johnson. Ted Last. Patricia Podger. Annie Riddle.
4.
Sharon Rydell. Ed Rimmer. Ricky Rogers. Was that 4? Thank you. Paul Sample.
Vehemently abstain.
Andrew Sudders. And then Chris Taylor.
Against.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. What I will do is I will come back to Chair with your blessing to the proposer and the seconder of the motion to ask for further details, if that was okay.
Yep, it's fine.
Chairman, could I ask a supplementary question just before we move on, which is that this will obviously have an impact on the budget setting process that we begin in the autumn, and I can understand that we need to have a fairly timely decision, but that 6 weeks is stupid. So can we have some advice on when it would be a good time to set a deadline for reporting back to make relevant decisions for the next year?
Chair, if that's okay, once I understand the size of the working group we're talking about, then I'll be able to give a clear indication as to the timetable.
Okay, right. We move on to item 4, minutes of previous meeting. This is to approve as a correct record and to sign the minutes of the last meeting of the full council. Is everybody happy with those? Okay, I will sign those at the end of this meeting. Seems a bit late now, but does anybody have any declarations of interest? I'll take that as a no, if that's correct. Are there any dispensations?
None have been agreed, Chair.
Thank you. Chairman's announcements. Well, in his absence, he sent a tome of all his engagements, which I will regale you with. Okay, so the mayor has been very busy. Mayor making ceremony, obviously. Salisbury Twinning Association dinner. Mayor making service and lunch at the Guildhall. Initial meeting with Alibari team for their visiting Alibari sites across the city. Breakfast with the Alibari Military Field Kitchen. Visiting the Teenage Market. Alibari planning meeting. You wouldn't guess that that's his charity, would you really? Wiltshire Creative Fun Day and Arts Centre on into June. Salisbury Charter Assembly at Salisbury FC. Marlborough Civic Event. The annual meeting of Charter and Trustees and election of the Mayor at Bath Abbey. Meeting with Reverend Canon Jean de Gary, the Mayor's chaplain. Living Water private viewing at Salisbury Cathedral. Visit and lunch at the Alzheimer's Support Day Club at Scotts Lane. Yeovil Civic Service Mayor making. Salisbury Fire Station forecourt scheme celebration. Mozart Bach concert at the Cathedral. Photo shoot and interview to launch Promote Alibari Big Sleep fundraising event at Stonehenge in November. Take a breath. July, citizenship ceremonies at Bourne Hill. Chickerell Mayor's Civic Day. Radio Bristol live interview promoting Mella. Fovant Badges Society annual drumhead service. Salisbury and South Wilts Scout AGM and presentations at Dennis March House, and Twinning Association visit to Sens. In his absence, I've also attended a few events, which include the launch of the Salisbury Music Festival in October, the Salisbury Motor Show, where I got to sit in a fire engine and press the horn, the Chorlton Rare Breeds 40th anniversary, and just this weekend past, a visit from Salisbury, North Carolina, mayor's relatives who flew in by helicopter and then flew out again a couple of hours later. On to item 8, and we have the administration leaders' announcements. Over to you, Councillor Sam Charleston.
Thank you, Chair. I will be brief. I think I had hoped, given our sort of slightly unexpected, but certainly not unwelcome, improved financial position, I'd hoped that we may be having a bit of a boring year in some respects, in a sort of shoring up the finances, making sure the reserves are fully topped up. We are, of course, cursed to live in interesting times, as has been mentioned before in this meeting. The Poultry Cross, of course, is something that looms its Grade 1 listed head, as well as the sort of more recent developments around travellers setting up camps in our green spaces. So much to be dealt with. Poultry Cross, whilst is not a great story, I think we're happy to look at the underlying story, which is that we're now doing proactive inspections and hopefully maintenance of our listed assets, which is how this issue was caught in the first place. So I hope there's agreement that better to have caught this now than to have had the thing fall over at some point in the past. I know Mark is looking into trying to find out when the last time anyone touched the Poultry Cross, aside from our own repairs from when the car crashed into it. And I think I don't know if he has an answer yet, there's a strong suspicion that no one has touched it, possibly since the 1800s. So we look forward to that update. So we are being proactive with our maintenance and inspection program, which is a good thing to be, or it's a good place to be. Generally, I think the focus has been on improved communications, both internally and externally to the council. I hope councillors will agree, those who were here before, that we are getting information shared with us in a more timely manner, and I certainly have appreciated the regular updates on the key issues of the day. I'm also establishing a cadence of regular meetings with Ian Thorne as leader of Wiltshire Council, which will be meeting at least monthly moving forward to talk about, how we can both work together, or we can all work together indeed. And it's nice to see information flowing both ways. It's a lovely model that seems to be starting to work. There will also be, it looks like, meetings of the larger parishes around Wiltshire, also on a regular basis. So we can all sort of hopefully be working together more in the future. Obviously, this is updates from the administration, but I think the next item on the administration agenda is the budget setting process. And I absolutely look forward to working with as many of you as possible for that budget setting process. I look forward to engaging with you all, whether you're in my group or not, about what the budget looks like moving forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. On to item 9, committee reports. Do we have any of the committee chairs wishing to speak? Councillor Bolwell.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I've now took over the role of Chair of the Environment and Climate Committee. It can be very diverse, can't it? I did an interview the other week about duck feeders, and so did Sven. We did the two sides of the story, didn't we? My other thing is I'm very pleased to say that Tiggs's audits are all done. For the ones of you that pitched in and spent your hour wandering around wherever, fair play to you. For the ones of you that haven't, trust me, even as a disabled person, I learned a lot last time round. If you get the chance to do it, do not let the fact that I have done 14 audits that I'm not even a member of the ward for, All right, okay. So, yeah, all right, I did an extra 13. There you go. She's always there to correct me. If you didn't get the chance to do it, don't be put off by the fact that I've done it. I did it because these audits needed to be done. But at the end of the day, you'll all benefit from doing one.
Thank you. Anyone, anything from communities?
Thank you, Chair. So we've had the first meeting of communities. We had a great presentation from Wiltshire Creative, and we're looking forward to a strong partnership going forward with them. On behalf of the Council, I want to welcome our new Head of Communities, Louise Webber, and look forward to working with her. And I'd like to say that anybody who attended Sunday's Mela, I think is just a really fantastic example of the work of this council, both the communities team and the events team at the moment. It was a wonderful day, really joyful. And Sam and I bumped into some old friends who were so excited to be here and said they were off to go dance because the day was in their honour. And I think that's just a really great mark of the welcomeness of Salisbury and how we can all work together for a better place. I look forward to it next year.
Thank you. Events, markets and grants. Sam?
Thank you very much. I think this will be the first and last time I report on this committee if the next item does as it's meant to. But yes, for the Events, Markets and Grants Committee, we discussed various things. I think one in particular to call out is we are going to be looking into the option of digital signage in Salisbury again, but there's lots to be discussed there, and I think it was really nice as a committee we were all aligned with making sure we put what Salisbury needs at the heart of that, and so we'll be doing that with careful scrutiny. And then to reiterate the Mela as well as an event, attending it myself, but I'm sure anybody that was there yesterday, how good it was. And I want to reiterate thank you to the team behind that. I know a lot of hard work goes into these events, so I'm really grateful for what was a great day yesterday. Looking forward to future ones. And then finally, everybody please support Fair on the Square, which kicks off, as we can see outside in a matter of days. So yeah, looking forward to that as well. But yeah, that's it from me. Just one item. I did send through a written one with more details in. Happy for them to go public in minutes or whatever afterwards as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. F&G, Sam Charleston.
Thanks, Chair. Not a huge amount to report. I think as F&G, we consume a lot of the budget outturn reports. Just generally, we had our one, and I'm very pleased, always very pleased to see the budget outturn monitoring reports, both in principle of increased scrutiny on the council's finances, but also in practice because usually the numbers are looking very good. And we had a small increase to officer spending limits, delegated officer spending limits. And obviously the big focus at the moment, which Steve has been working extremely hard on, is making sure we are our auditing is compliant. So thank you to Steve. Thank you.
Thank you. As personnel haven't actually met yet and don't till the 28th. I won't ask for anything for them. Planning and development, other than it's the busiest committee. Over to you, Caroline.
Yep, it is one of the busiest. And it's interesting because we've got a lot of new councillors on it this time. So it's a very different flavour from before because a lot of the things like the Cathedral Hotel wasn't well received last time, but the new councillors were happy to receive it. And fortunately, it's gone through. So maybe we will see a lot more vibrancy in the city and not just at the Mela, which was amazing.
Thank you. Okay, on to item 10, changes to committees membership. Has everybody read this?
I'm sorry I haven't, because I've only just got back from abroad an hour or so before this meeting began, and I've been away for 10 days.
Are there any changes or suggestions? Councillor Taylor?
I chatted with the CEO after seeing the paper. There's a typo. So the Communities Committee has 7, not 9 people on it. On the list, it has 7. In the paper with the volume, with the text, it says 9. So there's a typo there.
Okay, so that's noted. Item 11, update from outside representatives.
I believe that was Councillor Johnston and Councillor Rideout.
Councillor Johnson.
Hello. So as the outside representative for Diggs, I will report that the Play for Everyone audits are complete and echo what Jenny has already covered very eloquently. Diggs wanted to pass on their thanks to all the councillors who have been involved, and particularly to Councillor Bevan, who ensured that the audits could continue. Diggs have appointed a new secretary and chair of trustees, so chair of the trustees. So we expect things to run more smoothly. The Charity Commission registration is being applied for again. And there is a meeting on the 23rd of this month, and all are welcome who wish to help promote accessibility within the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Ridout.
So with responsibility for allotments, I don't know how aware everybody is, but there was a lot of upset around allotments previously, but we have 784 allotments in Salisbury across 13 sites, and currently 748 of those have got tenants on them. And we are getting happier tenants. Mark is working tirelessly with me. He's delighted. And there's a lot of movement now with allotments, which is great. 21 tenants have been given notice to either improve their plot or get off in June alone. So we are improving the sites. We've got issues around at the moment with bees, and we're looking at policies around that, because more and more people are wanting to keep bees on their allotment, which is great, and we want to keep them, but we also need to support those who have allergies and looking at insurance and things, because we could be responsible. And there is a strategy going forward to the Environment Committee in their meeting in September, where we'll be putting forward some suggestions to take the allotments to an even greater place than they are now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on to item 12. Presentation from Adam Ellis of For Love of Water. Okay, if you just want to press the button on the mic.
Hello, I'm not Adam. He can't make it today. He has clashes with a school play for one of his children. So you've got me. I'm his colleague, Maddie. I'm also from For Love of Water. And yeah, I'll just wait for the presentation to come up. So this is to talk about a proposed bathing water at Queen Elizabeth Gardens. We have a number of supporting organisations on this. That includes mine, which is For Love of Water, Wiltshire Wildlife Trust, Salisbury Transition City, and Extinction Rebellion, and hopefully some more soon as well, once we get the word out. Can I have the next slide, please? So I suppose the most important thing is why does this matter? Why should we have a bathing water in Salisbury? So as you probably all know, the River Avon runs through Salisbury. It's probably one of the most prominent features, I would say. And water quality is a really big part of rivers and the ecosystem. And water quality generally in the UK isn't brilliant. And the Avon also could have improved water quality. Also is to look at public health around water. Lots of people get in water. I know a lot of people swim in Salisbury. I do myself. And it's just, to also get the community involved with their river and understanding its importance. So the goal of this is to apply for a bathing water at Queen Elizabeth Garden and improve the health of the river and public safety. Have the next slide, please. So I briefly touched on this, but water quality in the UK isn't brilliant. You've probably heard lots of the headlines. So no river in the UK reaches the Environment Agency's targets for good chemical status, which isn't great, and only 14% achieve good ecological status across the UK. Some of the Hampshire Avon does achieve good ecological status. We are very lucky, but not all of it is broken down into pieces. The Hampshire Avon in particular is a very important river. It's a chalk stream. We have 80% of the world's chalk streams in the UK. The Hampshire Avon could be classed, I would say, as one of the best examples of chalk streams in the world. And as a result, it's really highly designated. It's a triple SI, it's an SAC, it's protected under our law, European law. It's a really important river system. We also have the public perception and the public risk around water quality. So Surfers Against Sewage, who we do work with quite a bit, I've done lots of research on this, and they suggest that 55% of people who have been swimming have got ill at some point through getting in a river. 1 in 6 people have got in a river or tried while swimming, which is great. But then another 50% of people don't even want to consider getting in a river because they're worried about that health, especially with the headlines recently of like rivers being open sewers, and this kind of narrative that water quality is absolutely terrible in this country. I have the next slide, please. So the solution that we see going forwards is through bathing water designation. It gives a legal framework for us to actually monitor our water quality and improve it, because it's quite hard just to do that without any framework involved. So having a bathing water designated means that it has to be monitored by the Environment Agency over the bathing water period. So that's May to September, and that is monitored weekly by the Environment Agency. And each year is given a classification based on what they find as to the water quality and its health. And if that is, for example, poor, then work has to be put in place to make improvements to that water quality. So that might be investigations into where potential pollution sources might be, or like upgrading, for example, sewage infrastructure in the area to reduce input. It also empowers the public to understand maybe the potential risks of going into water, or whether actually it is safe to go in, which is great. Can I have the next slide, please? So I suppose why Queen Elizabeth Gardens? We have so much water throughout Salisbury. I've swum in various different bits myself, but Queen Elizabeth Gardens, firstly, meets all of DEFRA's criteria for a site that would be which would be good for bathing water. So that's it has public loos, is one of them, and good facilities and parking nearby. It's also, as we all know, very popular. I think, if you hear any of the last few weekends when it's been really hot, it's full of children paddling, which is great to see. Also, the central area of Queen Elizabeth Gardens has little fishing interests, so there's not going to be conflict between user groups, which is quite often an issue. And it's nice and shallow and safe to get in. Can I have the next slide, please? I suppose next is the application process, and what does that entail? So inland bathing waters is a relatively new designation. It's generally been coastal waters have been designated. That's always been local authority led. However, inland waters has been community based and led, and that is what we're proposing here, that the community bring it forwards with the help of our supporting organisations of this. And what it will require is myself and the community to carry out the application, and that includes a public consultation period of 6 weeks. We have to do user counts over 2 events. We have to prove that 100 people are using that water within a 4-hour period. And we also need to do community engagement. Can I have the next slide, please? So yeah, what we hope to achieve through this is just to inform public about, water quality in general and their local rivers, as Salisbury is, such a river-centric city, and just, empower people to make safe choices and align with, Salisbury's green strategies. And the next slide, please. So there is actually very little we need from the council. There's no cost involved, which is great. What we need is a letter of support from Salisbury City Council as the landowner, and then we also need to get support from Wiltshire County Council, which we'd like your help to obtain as well. And that is it, and hopefully relatively brief.
Thank you very much. Any councillors have any questions? Councillor Victoria Charleston.
Thank you very much. All sounds really great and very happy to support. But my question is, obviously Lizzie Garden is really, really popular. There are other sites in Salisbury that are also popular for paddling and everything else. Could we see this as a first site? If it's successful, could we look at other places? For example, in my own ward, there's a lot of wild swimming along the Avon, and obviously Harnham as well, a lot of children paddling there.
I think definitely, but I think it's the site has to meet the DEFRA guidance, which one of those is having a public loo. So that is probably the main, that's why we've gone for Lizzie Gardens, basically. Yes.
Councillor Hocking.
Thank you, Manny. So firstly, I fish in the rivers, have done ever since I was a kid. So water quality for me is key. Yeah, I'm very keen on anything that we can do to improve that. A couple of things. I'm interested in your statistics. 1 in 6 people have tried wild swimming. I'd suggest only by accident when they've fallen in, because that would mean in Salisbury with 60,000 people, 10,000 have tried wild swimming in the River Avon in and around. And I'm on the rivers all the time because I fish, and I don't see anything like that, those numbers at all.
That's all right. No, it's a fact from Surfers Against Sewage, and that would also include sea swimming as well, which might help with that statistic.
Okay, that's like I say, if 55% of that 10,000 has got sick in Salisbury, then there'll be
Yeah, it would be. No, it's wild swimming in general.
And then
rivers.
lastly, so I've seen the picture where we're talking about further downstream, that stream before it runs into the main carrier, there's some very gnarly trees and all the rest of it. Now, if someone falls in and gets their foot stuck in a tree branch and nearly dies, that would be terrible, but because it's not formalised, it's an accident. If we formalise it and make it so, and then someone falls in and gets their foot dragged, snagged in a tree and drowns, then we formalised it. So there's responsibility, and we all know in this day and age where there's blame, there's a claim. So how are you going to square that away so that there is no liability on the council or you even?
Yeah, no, I think that's a big point that comes up a lot. And yeah, it's tricky. There will have to be, as part of this, a sign will be put up to say that it's a bathing water, and information including, kind of safety should be on there. But that is a point that cannot be avoided.
But where does the blame lie?
I need to check, but I'm not 100% sure. Sorry.
Okay, Councillor Sam Charleston.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with everything that's said about the importance of water quality. When we lived in London, we used to live next to, the canals and waterways, and sometimes you'd see people free swimming, and you'd think, well, good luck to you. It's not somewhere I'm particularly keen to swim in a London canal, but paddling in Lizzie Gardens seems like a very reasonable thing to do. I remember reading a statistic from Surfers Against Sewage a few years ago. It said something like surfers in general are 3 times more likely to have antibiotic-resistant bacteria in their stomachs because they intake so much sewage. And as the proud owner of 3 small children, I'd quite like my children not to have sewage in their stomachs, so I'm all for it. I think that's it, really. Yeah, all for it. Very much agree. Let's do it. Let's see if we can get the Wiltshire Council Cabinet Member for the Environment involved, if we could only work out who he is. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. I'm just going to jump in here. As someone who has been known to swim on occasion in open water, I'm quite happy to support this. And as I believe 90% of the world's chalk streams actually reside in southern England. I think it's very, very important for us to maintain these environments. So over to Councillor Ridout. Sorry, Councillor Rimmer. I can't read. The CEO is writing. So Councillor Rimmer, sorry.
Thank you. Like Councillor Hocking, I also had the question about the statistic, because even if one takes it, that would suggest that 1 in 12 people in the UK have been ill from wild swimming, which does seem to be, well, I've slightly questioned that statistic, but I mean, I don't know whether if that is true, then that is fairly shocking. I would suggest that that would be possibly wider known if it was true, but if it is, then it probably needs publicising. But you know, I'm all for clean water, but my question really is, how successful has this been in other places that it's happened? When it says legal pressure on polluters to clean up, what does that actually look like, and to what extent does that actually have a successful outcome? Because if you know, it sounds good, but I'm just not clear exactly about the actual result from doing this, and whether it's just sort of aspirational or whether it has an actual potential to improve things.
No, it does have really good potential to improve things. So we've recently had designated in Fording Bridge bathing water, which we were a part of. That has led to Wessex Water changing its plan to update some of its sewage works, which is really good. And the Environment Agency are looking at wider catchment inputs and where they might be from. So it has actually led to actual change on the ground in a very short space of time, which is quite unusual, to be honest, with water quality. So I think there's real potential for there to be like tangible outcomes from this.
Councillor Bolwell.
Wake honest. You said that part of the caveat for it is to have a public toilet. If it goes well at Lizzie Gardens, I'd be very keen for you to visit mine and Councillor Rogers' ward, because we have a public toilet at Lower Bemerton Recreation, and the children love going down there. My kids did it when they were younger, so I'd be very interested for you to pay us a visit.
Be happy to.
Councillor Dalton.
Chair, thanks. Excuse me. I just wonder if you could bring the picture back up of Elizabeth Gardens, the water there with the children. I mean, I would assume that the limits would be between both bridges. I don't see anybody usually paddling in Water Lane or, you know, behind where that picture is being taken. It's usually in that area there. You know, been there myself many, many years ago, jumping across to the island and then obviously getting into the water that way as well. I think the proposal was a good one. If it includes, as it does, to test the water more regularly, I think that's useful. I don't understand it's a cost to the council, and I guess any risks or liabilities that the council would, as it does now, wouldn't be liable for anything, I would assume. And statistically, over probably, you know, I can go back 50 odd years, probably when I used to bathe in there, that I don't know if anybody's drowned in there over the years. I'm guessing there's the answer to that is no. Somebody else might know more than I do, but I think it's a good scheme. I think we should support it, and obviously we're not liable. That will all be wrapped up in some agreement somewhere. It just makes the area, you know, the public can see if there are any contaminants in the water, if the water's going to be tested, and if you can get Wessex Water or whoever to do extra things to keep the river clean, then it's got to be a good thing, in my opinion.
Councillor Ridout.
Thank you. I am one of those wild swimmers, and I don't do it by falling in, but the Nadder is my river of choice to swim in. However, I take my grandchildren, and I will be there tomorrow at the Avon in that very spot, and we will have a lovely time. So it would be wonderful to have it as bathing, knowing that it is safe. I've just had a quick Google search, and it doesn't fall to us to have any responsibility. So adults are responsible for their own safety and the safety of their children when we've got designated bathing. Our responsibility will primarily be providing signage and information about water quality and potential hazards. And we would also have responsibility for any risk that we cause ourselves, but not for any natural hazards like trees, which is reassuring.
And finally, I've got Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Chairman. I just really want to know how you're going to measure the success of the initiative. You know, obviously you've chosen Queen Elizabeth Gardens, a popular site, and that's an offshoot of the River Avon. But as Jenny said, we've got a popular site of the Nadder and Wiley in Lower Bement Recreation Ground, which has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of children, particularly this time of year. Many of them learn to swim in that river. I just wondered, so is there a way you can expand the initiative or the awareness or what you're trying to achieve to get some sort of clean status symbol?
I think there definitely can be. It's something we can look into. Yeah.
Councillor Corbyn.
Thank you. Just thinking about it, everybody likes to have a splash. So can we make sure that we have some accessible spots so that anybody from the disabled community can get in and have a splash? Thank you very much.
I'm not volunteering.
Okay, I believe the CEO wanted to respond.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that there is a call to arms in terms of the ask here from Flo, in terms of a vote to support a letter going from this authority. Should there be a decision to write a letter in support of this scheme, could I ask for a period of due diligence? I appreciate Councillor Ridout's Google search, but I'd love us to just detail the queries on liabilities and on any unknown costs. I would hate for this council to sign up to something and there be question marks or issues that are unknown and not considered at this point. So if that was okay.
Councillor Foster, did you want to comment or propose the motion?
I was going to propose a motion based on that.
Okay, excellent. Do we have a seconder?
I have a question. Sorry, it's just a quick practical question. It's obviously a very praiseworthy idea, but we don't have control of what is poured into the water further upstream. And who has the ability to actually, I mean, it doesn't just stop there, does it? It doesn't stop at our boundary. The water goes where the water goes. So if it's polluted further upstream, what can we do about that? And how does what we could add to your project add value?
So yeah, you're completely correct. And that is part of why we want it monitored, to check what's coming upstream. And you can, as a result, if there is things coming from upstream and we find there is poor water quality, that's where the EA have that role, that they have to look at where they think that's coming from, whether that's missed connections, or that could be, further up the catchment and could be farm-based, or it could be sewage-based, but it's part of their due diligence that they have to find out where that might be.
Councillor Charleston, were you going to second the motion? Okay, we have a proposer and a seconder. All those in favour of supporting this? Is that unanimous? I think it probably is. Thank you very much. You have your support. Okay, item 13, Local Visitor Economy Partnership. This is to consider the option for Salisbury City Council to join the Local Visitor Economy Partnership, otherwise known as the LVEP, coordinated by Visit Britain. Asa, did you want to speak on this?
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep this one short. The report asks for a one-off donation of £5,000, which would enable Salisbury to have a seat on the advisory board of the LVEP. At the moment, that seat is for officer-only attendance. That is the terms that have been offered by both Wiltshire and by Visit Wiltshire. At the moment, there is no budget which is attached to this particular ask. However, I am sure that we could find £5,000. The RFO is not giving me the evil stare, so I'm sure that should full council issue the request that we could do so. So the recommendation is that councillors consider and decide whether Salisbury City Council should support the formation of a Wiltshire Local Visitor Economic Partnership with a one-off budget allocation of £5,000 covering 25-26.
Councillor Victoria Charleston.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to support in principle. Obviously, there's a long checkered history with Visit Wiltshire and Salisbury. What I'd ask, if we do go ahead with this £5,000, which seems reasonable enough, that the leader and the CEO sit down and work out measurables for this £5,000 to see actually if we want to continue the year after and the year after that. I don't want to just sign it off straight away.
Councillor Hocking.
Thank you, Chair. And following up from Victoria, and what Victoria said, so Richard Clear, when the Conservatives had the administration of Wiltshire Council, discontinued funding for Visit Wiltshire for just that reason. There was no evidence anywhere that the funding from Wiltshire Council led to an increase in football, revenue, tourism or whatever throughout any part of the county. So measuring the outcome is going to be extremely difficult, if not even possible at all. And I'd just like to go back to our public toilets. So we're about to form a working group, and out of that might come a recommendation to spend £1.75 million on new toilet stage, underground storage with a cafe and a kiosk. And then the extra 5k that we might go to this might help with that 1.75 million, because after all, every little helps, doesn't it? We haven't got the money to do this at the moment. We've just talked about a whole load of other stuff that we want to do, and here we are, spend. I would not for 1 second countenance this £5,000. I know it's only £5,000, but it's money that we don't have to spend, and we are going to need it for a whole lot of other stuff. Thank you.
Councillor Foster.
It is money. I would like £5,000 if anyone's willing to offer it. But for the council, it's not a huge amount to get a seat at the table. And I think there are many examples I can point to in the years gone by, particularly since 2016, where not having a seat at the table means you don't get a say on things. And I think at least as an initial year, with measures where possible, it's worth getting a seat at the table. We can then decide whether we want to do it for future years, but we could regret it if Salisbury misses out because efforts and initiatives are pointed elsewhere within the county because we're not there to champion our city.
If through the chair, thank you, Chair. It is a seat on the advisory board to the joint group between Wiltshire Council and Visit Wiltshire. It is not a seat on that board per se, it is a seat on the advisory board.
Councillor Saddard.
Well, we seem to have councillors who are part of the Wiltshire Council. Surely they have influence through that route. At the moment, I haven't really heard what the advantages of this body itself is. So if somebody could enlighten me on that. And what is the disadvantage of us monitoring by sitting on it, not as a paid up member, for a year, so we actually monitor what actually happens before we put our hand in our pocket. At the moment, it seems as though we have to buy before we try, rather than try before we buy.
Okay, I believe Councillor Sample can respond to that.
Yes, Chair. I'm not going to take any lessons from Councillor Hocking about the wiseness or otherwise of Councillor Richard Clear's decisions over the course of the last 12 years or so, where they were never ever challenged on nonsense, and they have now found their ending, I suppose, in the local elections where they were thrown out. The LVEP, the aims and objectives, Councillor Suddard was asking for some. The number one reason is to boost local tourism by seeking to attract more visitors, domestic and international, to extend visitor stays and increase spending, to help coordinate marketing and branding and promote destinations more effectively with cohesive campaigns, to support sustainable growth and encourage responsible tourism and reduce over-tourism in sensitive areas, to attract investment and funding and strengthen the case for public and private funding by showing joined-up governance, to improve data and insight sharing and use tourism data to make better local decisions about tourism, and to engage local businesses and create opportunities and training for small and medium enterprises and tourism operators. One of the greatest achievements, I think, probably of a previous council that I was a member of, and which councillors Dalton and Rogers were members of, was the Salisbury Tourism 2000 project, which brought together organisations from all over the city to promote the city as a destination. And we had great buy-in from local businesses, particularly cafes and restaurants and pubs and clubs and hotels, you know, and even people like the cathedral and the museum got involved in it. Absolutely wonderful, wonderful work, people working together. That's really what local enterprise partnerships are all about, encouraging people to work together. If we just got one tourist bus extra coming to Salisbury, maybe from Cunard down at Southampton, if we just got one extra tourist bus coming in with 50 occupants, one tourist bus, think of what the impact would be of that single bus. On average, £20,000 in one hit. I'm up for that, but I think more importantly, our local businesses that have been hit so hard deserve to be given a little bit support and leadership by this local authority, and this is a small step in that direction.
Thank you. Councillor Rimmer.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just find it slightly baffling again that we're talking about, okay, you know, it's only £5,000, but, you know, £5,000 is a considerable sum. And, you know, lest we forget that it was only in January that we closed those public toilets for £50,000. So, you know, it's only 10 times this. And there's, as far as I can tell, no evidence of the positives for this, really, aside from just sort of guesswork. And the only evidence really that we have is from Wiltshire Council, where it wasn't deemed to be successful. So to me, it just seems an odd decision if we were to spend public money on a total gamble like this, when there's no evidence that it's going to pay off. And these are the exact sorts of things that I think the public would prefer us not to be doing, these sorts of things, and prioritising actual services that we're here to provide, such as public toilets, which we've decided not to make a decision about.
Councillor Corbyn.
Oh, thank you. Right. One point I'm going to make. £5,000 is very small when there's a person sat around this table that gets £16,000 a year for being a Wiltshire councillor and fails to meet meetings which are important for his ward. But I'm sorry, sir, I've got to go. There is one other point I'd like to make, is on the dormant bank account, can you please make sure that any money that is earmarked in that account that comes back to the council is put forward for events? I have to go to work at midnight. I would stay for the rest of the tomes, but I won't. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Riddle.
Very much aware that over the last 4 years, the previous leadership of Wiltshire Council has been very disappointed with what's been achieved by Visit Wiltshire, and actually got really fed up with it and didn't want to have any links with that. And it was seen to be promoting the Great West Way and nothing to do with the south of the county. So I would, before I gave them a penny, I'd want to know how that was going to be different. We put our money into Experience Salisbury, or put our time and effort into Experience Salisbury, which promotes Salisbury. So I'm not sure that, I don't really know what the benefit's going to be. Unless somebody could convince me, then I don't think we are in a position to just try and see for just £5,000 when we need all these £5,000.
Councillor Sam Charleston.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I think I do take your point, Annie, about Experience Salisbury and our sort of homegrown solution, and it's a great one. And I'd hope that being able to have if we're going to use the term, seat round the table, means that we can avoid perhaps any duplication of effort there. I know there were issues with duplication of effort before. I'd like to hope that as an active participant, or at least as an active advisory participant, we can avoid that and have a say in the direction of travel. I'm very much for that. I'll support this. I am in favour of it. I do think it's a shame to be receiving this as a report from officers and not to have a representative from Visit Wiltshire here to present and possibly be quizzed. Some of the points made by councillors all around these tables are very good, and I think would have been worth having someone here who was able to answer those questions. Thank you.
Just on that point, we were very clear with representatives from Visit Wiltshire that this would be a report that was going to full council, and they were able to speak to it should they want to.
Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I look at this £5,000. Of course, there's lots of other things I'd like that money spent on: tree maintenance, weed spraying. But the reality is, if you look back over the history of all the economy partnerships we've had, they've served us well, and they've been a real boost to the city's economy. So I think this is well worth spending £5,000 for the money it will generate in the local economy. So I'll fully support it, Chairman.
Okay, do we have someone who'd like to propose support for this?
Yep, I'll propose, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? So Councillor Podger. Okay, all those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All those against? And abstentions? So that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, on to item 14, Standing Orders Annex A review. This is to adopt 2025 review of Annex A. Committee terms of reference.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to pay tribute to Penny Muxworthy, one of our officers from Corporate Support. Penny is unwell this evening, so unfortunately can't be with us, because it should be Penny who is talking to this particular report this evening. She has furnished me with just a few words, if you'll indulge me. Good evening, councillors. I present to you the report and recommended amendments to Annex A of Standing Orders. Firstly, just to confirm, all political groups and all independents were invited to volunteer representatives to be a part of a working group, which met this time purely to discuss Annex A, the scheme of delegation / terms of reference. Various times and dates were offered, and a date set by majority. All those not in attendance of the meeting, but who had expressed an interest, were shared copies of the current and draft proposals. As highlighted in the report, Annex A is a standalone element of standing orders and can be updated and amended separately from standing orders. Usually amendments and updates are made after elections, as in this case, but it can also be made at other times to better reflect the work of members and service teams. The major recommendation from councillors in the working group was that Events, Markets and Grants Subcommittee be renamed Commercial Services rather than the proposed Business Services. The head of business will still be the head of service, and the committee will encompass the wider remit of the business team, including communications, Guildhall and non-precept income opportunities. As commercial services, the committee will have the ability to liaise with other committees over potential long-term commercial impacts. The Finance Committee will retain oversight of finance governance policies. All other policies will be assigned to the appropriate committee and head of service as per the appendix. Personally, and on behalf of Penny, I would just like to say thank you to those councillors who gave up their time to attend the meeting, including Councillors Brown, Councillors Last, Councillors Podger, Councillors Saddard. So thank you very much. I won't go through the report in any more detail other than to recommend it for questions and ideally a vote.
Councillor Sam Charleston.
Didn't realise I was going to be the quickest off the mark there. No, I think this is a great example of where we've seen in this issue, we've pulled together a working group. It's got that cross-party approval. I think, by the sounds of it, it was a very efficient session. Yeah, I'd have no problem with any of these recommendations, and I'm very happy to move it. But also, I'd be very keen to hear from some of the councillors involved if they'd like to speak.
Okay, do we have any other comments, councillors, or are we happy to move to the vote? Okay, all those in favour? I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, on to item 15, annual full code accounts, SORP 2024-25. You're on again, Steve.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start with an apology again. This should have come to you at the May full council meeting that we arranged specially for it, so I apologise for the delays before it came here. But if you remember at that one, I advised that we probably wouldn't be able to produce these at all. However, we've managed to pull these together. So I'm very delighted and relieved to be able to present them to you this evening. I won't go through all the details. As you've seen, there's 44 pages on the agenda item. I am recommending that the council approves them, and if you do approve them, then after this meeting, the chair of the meeting will need to sign off the statement of responsibilities. So it's a very serious matter. It's a very serious consideration. It is just accounts. I know it can seem a bit dry, but luckily or unluckily, it's quite a spicy first set of accounts that this council is going to consider. So normally they're very boring and very stable and steady from one year to the next. But of course, these are the first SORP accounts that you had before you. After we produced the AGAR reports last year, I suspected that we had a serious problem, which is why we brought it to full council as soon as we could. That's why there was an element of panic a year ago when we said that there was a real risk of running out of money. We were never cash strapped. There was never any danger of running out of money per se, but there was a very strong feeling that the general reserve was looking much lower, perhaps under SORP than it would be under AGAR. And we did some very quick provisional calculations, and sure enough, it showed it was a very serious, perilous position. But it is still, at that point, looked as though we had £400,000 in the general reserve. So that's way less than the 1.3 million that your policy required. Given the £400,000 loss we'd made the previous year in real terms, if we hadn't stepped in and done anything, there was a danger that we'd go down and deplete general reserve completely under AGAR rules. So that's why we brought that to your attention. You supported senior management team and all officers to do as much cost cutting as we could. And that's really the result that you see before you this evening. And we will get to that in a very quick summary. So I won't go through every page. Happy to take questions. This will go out after this evening. If approved, the whole SORP accounts will be open for public inspection, similar to the AGAR system. So there'll be plenty of opportunity for councillors as well as the public and any other interested stakeholders to ask questions in that period of inspection and challenge us or ask for more information. So this isn't the end of the process, but we can't go out to the public until you've approved the accounts. They are approved, hopefully this evening, and unaudited. That's the usual way of doing it. So there are two summaries I wanted to go through in parallel. The first 2 pages of the accounts themselves is the RFO narrative. That's really designed at the public, so it I won't go through it all now, but the first few paragraphs explain this journey we've been on between going from a smaller authority doing the AGAR simplified accounts through to this that you see before you, the 44 pages, which are SORP compliant. They're compliant to the same rules that Wiltshire Council and other principal authorities have to comply with. So that sets the scene. But then we move into, towards the bottom of page 1 of the accounts in the narrative, the biggest revelation that came through in producing these accounts, and in particular comparing them with the AGAR accounts, because it's the same base data. They're both produced from the same trial balance information, the same income and expenditure, but they treat big items very differently indeed. And as a result of that, at the bottom of page 1 of the accounts, you see before you that we've recalculated the general reserve, both at the 31st of March 25, which is the account year in question. It's very healthy then, and I'll quickly show you how healthy it is shortly. But you have to produce comparative year before figures. So although we weren't producing full 23-24 SORP accounts, we had to use SORP principles to recalculate the opening position for 24-25, which meant that position as at the 31st of March 24. Having posted all of the adjustments that are required under SORP that are not required under AGAR, the restated general reserve position at the 31st of March 24 is negative, and in this instance, negative is not a good thing. Usually I'm telling you the opposite, but this means we're below zero in our general reserve at the end of March 24 to the tune of £577,390. And we didn't know it. And that shows the usefulness of SORP and the limitations and restrictions of AGAR, because even under AGAR, when I made adjustments for the cash balances and transactions in last year, it wasn't full SORP accounts by any means, but even reducing those and making them as prudent as we could under AGAR, I didn't imagine that we would be below zero. However, when we've posted those adjustments, so the main adjustments are, as well as Section 106 and SIL and capital receipts, which are all treated as income under AGAR, which they're not allowed to be under SORP. So all of those were extracted last year when we did our provisional estimate. However, the PWLB, the Public Works Loans Boards, which is all the big long-term borrowing we've made from the government to do some of the big projects we've done in the past, the last one being the purchase of the new depot. That was a PWLB loan of 1.8 million, but there's been other ones as well for various parks works. The sum total of those loans over the years has been over 4 million. We're paying them back in accordance with the government's schedule of repayments. We've never had a problem of not being able to make those payments, so there's no problem about that. We're down to 2.1 million is still outstanding. That 2.1 million had to be rehoused, as it were, because under AGAR there's no balance sheet. It isn't anywhere. We've taken the benefit of that each year as income, which is clearly common sense says that it's not income at all. It have to be repaid at some point. But under AGAR, my predecessors and officers had no choice but to put them through as income. However, now we're producing SORP accounts according to the highest standards and principles. We've had to reverse that £2.1 million of benefit through general reserve. And that's what's really created the situation where to get an opening position that's accurate and reliable and could be audited and soundly signed off by an auditor, we had to show minus over £500,000 general reserve. Now, I'd like to reiterate that we were never short of cash, but we had lots of cash balances in Section 106 receipts, in SIL receipts, in capital receipts. Under AGAR, they're all lumped together as reserves, and therefore, as long as there's lots of money there, then on an everyday basis, we can pay all of our debts, we can pay payroll, we can even have spare money to invest and make a return on. All of that happened. So at no point were we in any danger of being realistically insolvent. Insolvency usually is a lack of cash to be able to pay your debts. We were never in that position. But from a technical accounting point of view, our general reserve should never go below zero. And even if we're at hundreds of thousands of pounds, and when I thought we were at 400,000, I shouted panic last year. And some RFOs would possibly even issue a Section 114 report if it looks that close to being so far from the 1.3 million we should be. So we took a pragmatic view then, but this is me now saying to you, now we've had the time to produce all of the adjustments we need to do, then technically we were insolvent in terms of depleting and going £500,000 beyond zero when it came to the general reserve. The so what question you'll all be asking is, so what's the impact of that? And all I can say is that the chief exec and myself have put that very question to the ministry. The section 114 report is always supposed to be forward looking. The reason why you've got an RFO with that power to issue a section 114 report is so that he's always horizon scanning, and when it's years away from that position, you know, he alerts the councillors then, and only if he thinks there's not enough preventive measures that are going to reverse that in time would they issue a section 114 report. No council, as far as I'm aware, has done a retrospective section 114 report, and the fact that we're now in a much healthier position, as I'll show you in a minute, on the 31st of March 25, is there a need to issue a report because we're out of the woods now. So we were in the woods without knowing it, we're now out of the woods, thankfully. So we've asked the Ministry of Local Government, they're the experts, and we're waiting to hear what they say. But we've been absolutely open and transparent at every opportunity, so we're not trying to hide the facts at all. So quickly finishing off the summary, on page 2, I go through and give you exactly what I've said in terms of the general reserve, and it is a breach of our public stewardship responsibilities and our regulatory duties. You know, all of the statute and regulations are set up so you never get to this position. However, you know, we're now waiting to hear whether there's anything we need to do from the local government ministry. As I say at the end of that section of the narrative, on the upside, it's been a huge wake-up call for the council. It's of real use to government and to the ministry for them to see a real-life example of a complicated, large parish council that was until last year deemed a smaller authority, having to use AGAR with all of its limitations, and not being able to manage its affairs properly with only that AGAR information. As a result of that, even if the government moves us back to being a smaller authority and we're back under the AGAR regime, if that still remains to be decided, we'll know by September, but even if that happens, the chief exec and I and SMT would all wish to carry on producing SORP quality accounts for that very reason, that AGAR is not really suitable for a complex, large-scale organisation, and therefore you'd want the transparency of being able to see what the real figures should be, fully compliant with accounting principles, and not the dare I say it, crazy way that we treat all of this, you know, loans that have been taken out and other people's money in terms of Section 106 and SIL, and treat it all as council income, even if that shows an unrealistic profit for the year. So that would be the intention, and there's a recommendation to that effect. But I think we're a good case study. Lots of organisations, when we're on this journey, said that they'd be watching Salisbury City Council, one, to see if we could actually manage to produce accounts, because no parish councils had to do this before, but also a very useful comparison of AGAR and SORP, and so what, does it actually make a difference? If we did go down that route of moving back to AGAR, we save a lot of money in terms of external audit fees. We actually get an external auditor probably, because we didn't have a problem before. It only cost us about, well, less than £5,000 a year to be externally audited. If you remember, our best estimate that we were told for an external auditor for SORP is 60,000. So if we move back to the smaller authority status and carried on doing SORP accounts, you'd have all the benefits of the transparency and accuracy without the disadvantage of paying an exorbitant external audit fee. So we get the best of both worlds. If I then quickly run through the covering report, as I say, the narrative is really designed for people perhaps unfamiliar with Salisbury and the journey we've been on, and trying to take them through in fairly high level and simple language. The covering report is much more your in-house style of trying to take you through and pull out the main details. So the three main statements in the accounts, as I say, I'm not going to take you through 44 pages, but it is worth drawing your attention to the first few pages where all the main schedules are on. So for those of you unfamiliar with local government SORP accounts, page 4, the comprehensive income and expenditure statement, is what most of the world calls a profit and loss account. So it's where all of the in-year income and expenditure goes. And it's very simple. If income is greater than expenditure, we've produced a surplus in our language, or profit in the private sector. If expenditure is greater than income, then clearly that's a deficit in our language, or a loss. And just looking at page 4, if you look on the left-hand side where we've got the 23-24 comparatives. So the previous year, £219,608 was the loss under SORP. Whereas in this year, the year in question, 24-25, on the right-hand side, there's £1.163 million surplus. So purely in profit and loss terms, we had a really good year, 24-25. It's nothing to do with budgets, because this is just real money. So it's nothing to do with budget, fatty budgets or budget underspends. This is purely real, actual income and expenditure, and it shows that we managed to produce a surplus of 1.163 million, which is what's replenished that general reserve of minus £500,000. Page 5 is the balance sheet. Apologies for the format. I mean, the balance sheet is probably the most important schedule here, but it's a bit lost in how small it is. But again, good news story there. If you look at the left-hand side, 31st of March 24, the total worth of the council, if you put it that way, is 42.1 million. 31st of March 25 on the right-hand side, because of that surplus, we've increased the value of the council to 43.6 million, to the nearest 100,000. That's a so the balance sheet, if you're unfamiliar with those, whereas the comprehensive income and expenditure account is purely looking at transactions within the year, the balance sheet is much more long-term. You've got an opening position of your assets and liabilities, and then you've got a closing position. And certainly the profit or loss during the year impacts on it, but other things can impact on the balance sheet as well, including loans, change in cash and cash equivalents, and also revaluations of fixed assets, which we'll come to shortly. Page 6 is the cash flow statement, often neglected after the other two, but this is quite important as well, because this shows you what you've done in terms of cash coming in and out of the organisation. Sometimes you can fudge your profit and loss account, but the cash flow is the statement that you can then check to see whether you're not raiding your cash and cash equivalents, just to generate a healthier balance sheet. And once again, this shows a big improvement. So it's both in accounting profit terms that we've had a good year, but also in terms of increasing our cash and cash equivalents from 2.36 million in 2024 to 3.7 million in 2025. So a very consistent story of a very good year. And just to reassure you, cash and cash equivalents doesn't mean cash sat in the bank doing nothing. We are investing this on a daily basis to try and generate as much income as possible. So we are putting that money to good use. And then page 7 is not one of the primary schedules, but it's one of the bigger notes to the accounts, which is the movement in reserve statement. And that's what it's in a different format. It's in a SORP format, but that's pretty much the 4 pots that you've been used to seeing at various reports before now. So general fund reserve is the general reserve, as we call it. So that's the left-hand side of figures on that page. And then you've got Section 106 and SIL get lumped together under this format, but that's still earmarked receipts, as we talked about before. Capital receipts is next. All of those added together are total usable reserves or receipts, in the sense that we can make use of them within the limitations and restrictions. We can put them to good use in every year, subject to councillor decision making. And then there's a column called unusable reserves. And that's where you'll see the second. So we started the year at 20 million. That's basically the value of all of our fixed assets, our buildings and plant, vehicles, etc. And during the year, as you might remember from previous reports, we got all of that revalued from scratch. We hadn't had a full revalue for probably forever, but certainly within the last 10 years. So we revalued all of our land and property using RICS qualified surveyors. So it wasn't done in-house. We got experts in to do it. And the result of all of those valuations was to add another 20 million to our fixed asset base, which is good news, but it's not real money. It's a paper exercise. But nevertheless, if ever in future we needed to borrow money, any lender would look at our overall total assets, including the value of our land and buildings, and clearly adding 20 million to that would be useful for that exercise. So they're the main schedules. Happy to take any questions, but just to finish off the summary of the report, that's the results section of the report. The paragraph 4.5 really just says, the result of all of that, even with the bad news opening position, the big revelation of us having negative general reserve at the start of the year, is that the council now finds itself in a much stronger position We're not out of the woods totally yet. We haven't got our general reserve back to the policy of which is now 1.44 million. We're still short of that, but we've made great inroads to that. And that for paragraph 4.6 is really saying, even if we're allowed to go, we're told to go back to smaller authority status, we still think, you know, that the benefits of SORP outweigh the time saved by just producing the AGAR account. So we would continue with your support to do those in parallel going forwards, but without having to pay for an external auditor, subject to the statutory instrument being approved that I've explained to you before, and we'll know in September whether or not our designation has changed. And the recommendations are for you to approve the accounts for 24-25 that have been produced under SORP, and for you to endorse our use of SORP accounting, even if we don't have to statutorily use them in future. That's the summary, but happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Steve. Before we go to councillor questions, we are actually approaching the 3-hour mark. So are members content to continue after 9:30?
We have just double checking.
Just double checking. Let's plough on then. Councillor questions. Councillor Rimmer.
Thank you. Thanks to Steve and to the other officers for working hard on all this stuff. And, you know, obviously, undoubtedly, we're in a massively improved place to where we were before and the mess that the accounts were in previously. But I suppose my question really is about councillors and their role in this and accountability, because to me, it sort of feels, again, like the officers do the work on this stuff and tell us what the situation is and we vote. And it feels quite retrospective, and it doesn't feel like we have actual kind of political direction to where we're going. And which I'm aware that the current administration is very new, but it feels quite similar to what we had previously in that sense. So I guess my question to the leader or to the administration is, you know, to what extent is the strategy coming from councillors? And, you know, you look at things like page 2, the thing that jumps out to me is the fact that we, you know, still reliant on 64% of income coming from the precept. And, you know, what's the strategy to change that? And how is that going to come about? For example, how, you know, it talks about wanting to have more commercial income, and that's very kind of aspirational, but there isn't, you know, I'd be interested to, I think we should really have more political direction about how those sorts of things are actually going to happen.
Councillor Charleston, did you want to respond?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a little confused by the question, to be honest, because the strategy for the last year or so since we've discovered the financial situation in the first place was to firstly shore it up and stop it happening, and secondly to make sure we diversify our income streams to try and stop it from happening again. I was substituting for Councillor Dalton at the last Events, Markets and Grants meeting, or the first one indeed of this council, where he's still here, where Matt gave a very informative, extremely informative presentation about, you know, his activities and some of the things that he's been doing, and, you know, considering the remit that he has in his role to look at diversifying our income streams and make sure that we're not so reliant on the precept. You know, I don't know if the minutes for that meeting have been published yet. Certainly the agenda was. Certainly the papers are. There are items in that paper, or items on that agenda. For example, not the digital signage, the analog signage that we've recently installed, or the council has installed along Southampton Road, which has been immediately snapped up by advertisers to the tune of, I think, £10,000 for the year, you know, and the scope and the approval of that committee to explore various other options. This stuff is very much the business of the council and is led by the committees that they report, that the officers report into. Again, at that meeting, the request was sought on this specific example, and there are many, but this is a particularly good one, I think, particularly exciting one. But the request was that the CEO And I think the chair of the committee be able to approve further locations, subject to them being brought back to the committee itself. And that was amended at that meeting to be able to say, no, the committee will be sovereign. Bring your suggestions to the committee and we shall vote on them. But this is the council's direction of travel. We are brought ideas by the officers and we give that operational guidance to say, yes, let's do this. Yes, I'm a little confused by the question because this does feel like what we have been engaged in for the last year is lots of activities to try and reduce our reliance on the precept.
Can I just come back on that very quickly? I think what you just said there is my point exactly there. You just said that the officers come up with ideas and then we vote on them. My point is that our role as councillors surely is to be coming up with ideas because we're the people who are accountable to the public. So it's our job, and particularly the administration's job, to come up with policy and tell the officers what the policy they should be working on is, rather than rubber stamping what the officers come up with.
Sorry, no one is suggesting rubber stamping anything that officers come up with. We have officers who are very excellent, really excellent at their jobs and employed in very specific roles. And again, to give a really excellent example, a head of business whose background is in diversifying income streams, not in local council, but in the NHS, with the idea that is a very applicable skill. That's not my background. I wasn't elected as a business manager. I was elected as a councillor to provide direction of travel, to oversee and to scrutinise these suggestions that officers come with, and to say, yes, we want to do that, or no, we don't. That's half of what we're doing in this meeting. That's what we do in all these committee meetings. I say it again, I'm confused by the level of questioning, because this is how we work in our committees. This is how we provide that direction. This is how we interrogate, scrutinise these suggestions that come from officers. You are more than welcome to attend the next meeting of the Events, Markets and Grants Committee meeting, or what we have now renamed it to. If you'd like that update, if you'd like to see that in action, you were previously a member of that committee in the last council, and I think you attended one meeting across the whole thing. So if you are not engaging with the process, that's sort of on you, not on me as administration leader. You can roll your eyes if you like. That's true. That is true. You were a member of the committee.
What I said was only an example.
And you didn't. No, please let me finish. You were a member of the committee and you didn't turn up. If you want to have a good idea about what the council is doing, please engage with the business of the council. Thank you.
Okay, over to Councillor Rogers.
Chairman, getting back to the reports that we have in front of us, I think they're excellent presentation by Steve, clear and transparent, which we've all been asking for many years. I personally want to thank both our senior officers for taking the action they did over a year ago, and for every member of our staff who have helped us get into this much better financial position. And I want to put that on record, and I'm happy to move the recommendations, Chairman.
Do we have a seconder? Competition. Councillor Foster, I saw first. Okay. Since we've got a proposal and a seconder, can we move to a vote? All those in favour? Yep.
You have, Councillor. There has been a decision to move to a vote, and the chair's allowed us to move to a vote.
All those in favour? All those against? Abstentions? No abstentions. That's carried. On to item 16. Dormant bank account closure. To seek formal approval to close a dormant bank account.
Hopefully self-explanatory, councillors, but I'm happy to take any questions. This is a very old account. It hasn't been used in 5 years. The bank confirms it's got a balance on it. It could be £5, it could be £500, but because we haven't got any authorised signatories, we can't access it. So the bank is saying the only thing that would get them to potentially close it and transfer the balance to the council is if we did what they call a board resolution, and obviously full council is the closest equivalent to a board. There's no guarantees it will work, but this is the only option that they're giving us. The ex-member of staff that I've managed to contact has very kindly said that they will help me to try and fill out any forms, any other forms besides this paperwork in order to get access. So that's very helpful of her. And I'm fairly optimistic, but there's no guarantees, but hopefully you're happy to approve this.
Happy to propose.
Seconder? All those in favour? All those against? That's
Chairman,
carried.
just for the record, just for the minutes, was that was a unanimous decision just there? Everyone voted for it. I just wonder whether that might help our case if it was recorded
Yep,
as
you can record
unanimous
that as
vote.
unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, item 18, matters if blah, 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 which by any reason of special circumstances the chairman decides should be discussed as a matter of urgency for information only. No, there aren't any. And with 1 minute to spare, I declare this meeting closed.